Good morning. Welcome to London Station. How's everybody doing today? I see a couple people in the chat, which you love to see. All my friends. All my friends gathering around. Kalana, good morning. D Priest, how you doing? I'm rocking the headache today. Yes. Pretty exciting stuff. I think it's gonna resolve decently. I have all the necessary things for dealing with that. Oh, you know what I forgot that I always forget? Take a guess. Actual medication. The one thing I never think to use. I'm going to do that, actually, right now. Enjoy the tune, and I'll be back in 1 second. Yeah, imagine that. Who would have thought that, when you have a headache, you can actually take something for it. Okay. Now we're locked and loaded. Ready to go. I've got a song today because I have to. It helps warm me up. Oh, yeah. But we're going to look at Legend in the Mist some more today. And I just posted on Blue Sky. Said, this stream is for me. I need to learn this faster than I've been learning it. And so we're going to go through the core book, volume 2, the Narrator book, which should not have anything that you really can't see as players of the game, in my estimation. It's going to be about like framing scenes and doing all that good happy stuff. If anything gets, of course, too spoilery, I will just skip it. So we'll probably go through it painfully slow as I do, and we'll get through like 10 pages. Maybe 10 pages. But it should be good. All right. The song is ended, and then I'm going to sing my own, and then we'll get straight into it. And I pitched this one down too, because it gets, I either have to like scream it to hit the high notes, or I've got to pitch it down a little bit. And my voice, you can tell in my voice, I'm still a little over 2 weeks of being sick now, and I'm over being sick. So that's no fun. This is Jingle Jangle by Hot Hot Heat, a song I said I wanted to sing a couple weeks ago. Watch your children round thee, abandoned well, don't ask me to tell if they slipped and fell. I'm just a salesman with my suitcase in hand and the perfect plan that you'll pull me out. Another day, another night, another year, another smile, another lie, another tear. It's bad enough, this is all I got. I never thought I'd end up here. Jingle jangle, that's the sound of coins spent on useless toys made for useless boys. I'm just a salesman with my suitcase in hand. There's a piece of land that I got my eye on. Another day, another night, another year, another smile, another lie, another tear. It's bad enough, this is all I got. I never thought I'd end up here. Friday night I'll raise my glass and say tomorrow things will change. I can't afford to wait, but by Monday morning my alarm clock knows how this story goes, and the ending is the same as the start. Another day, another night, another year, another smile, another lie, another tear. It's bad enough, this is all I got. I never thought I'd end up here. Watch your children round thee, abandoned well, don't ask me to tell if they Slipped and fell, I'm just a salesman with my suitcase in hand. There's a perfect plan that I'm working on, that I'm working on, that I'm working on. It's Jingle Jangle. Good tune. And now I'm warmed up. And now we can talk about RPGs. That's how that works. Oh, I also think I failed to hit the note I pitched that down to and sang it just as regular, so whatever. Clearly I could do that in practice, but not live. We can make it work. Let's go over to the book and see what I can learn about Legend in the Mist. And one of these days, I've got to figure out music for my non-Astro Prisma streams. Got to figure it out. Hey, man, thank you. Thank you. As always, I'm very critical. It could have been better. But, you know, I'm fucking sick, right? Like, come on. Come on. Here we go. So let's look at the beautiful art. Of course, Legend in the Mist. This is Core Book, Volume 2, The Narrator, because when they were writing this game, they were like, oh, no. This game is enormous. We should make this 2 books. Also, what you're seeing is not lining up with what I'm seeing, and that bothers me. So I need to adjust this so I don't try and show you things you can't see. Maybe I have to ditch the bookmarks. Okay, does that line up? That lines up. All right, now you're seeing what I see at least. Yeah, singing when you're sick. I don't know. I mean, you got to find the ones that, like, just go in that lower register, which that song doesn't, so I don't know what I was thinking, but whatever. I like it. I sang it. It happened. We got to move on. Look, just, this art. So good. And I know there's a team behind it, of course, but our friend Alejandra has got her hands in all of it. So good. There's my birth name scrolling past, because, you know, that's how we do. I should be in the list of backers on this book, too. I never checked. Okay, so we're going to go straight through. I didn't, like, pre-read this to know what we're getting into, so it's going to be, I'm just chilling today. I'm not going to try and blow my brain out. So this book, again, focused on the GM or narrator, as they're called in this system. Every Legend in the Mist game has a narrator, whether you play solo, in a pair, or with a group. The narrator is the organizing voice of your story, the one who gives it structure, introduces challenges and surprising twists, and who upholds the ancient storytelling rule that every action and every choice has consequences. That sounds cool. I wonder if that's actually a thing that they're calling back to, or if they're just, like, fluffing it up. In the classic group role-playing format, one participant takes the role of the narrator, while the other players each take the role of one of the main characters, the heroes. In such a game group, the narrator is also often the host of the game, or master of ceremonies, who helps manage the conversation. That's a PBTA word. In a solo game, you play both the hero and the narrator, and in a co-op game, the role of narrator is distributed between all players who also play as heroes. That, dun 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 dun, is kind of how we run New Dawn. We have a lot of self-GMing, co-GMing. It's a good time. This volume will guide you through narrating your games. The advice and tools given here are adapted to all styles of play. Now, Thaddeus was reading this chapter, and he was going on about how good it is about teaching framing for, like, any game. So I'm hoping we pull a lot of value out of this. Setting up a game. You're starting a new story. Here's the details you need. Setting, okay. We're going to be using in our campaign the Hearts of Ravensdale setting book, and we're going to be playing through the Wake of the Old Ways adventures, so this is all done for me. So that's nice and handy. Genre, themes, and tones. What will be the focus? We'll find out together. We don't know yet. What ideas or feelings will it explore? Dark or lighthearted, etc., etc. Yeah, and then points us back to the frames of play in the original book, which let's go back there for a giggle. Oh, it took me back to the chapter, not the actual section. Do not love that. Oh, no. I'm doing the... Here we go. Here's the frames of play. No, here's not the frames of play. All right. Okay. All right. This was a mistake. We've made a huge mistake. Oh, here they are. Okay. Oh my gosh. Like I said, I'm hanging in there today. Rustic Fantasy versus... No. Yes. Okay. Oh my god. Epic Journey versus Grit and Politics. I think Thaddeus was saying too. He was saying you could use this to run like a Game of Thrones political intrigue type of thing, because right, like using the tags and the statuses, you could have statuses where a specific character is indebted to another specific character and lean into that as an actual like central point of a campaign. We've got Dungeon Crawl here. I don't know how that would work. I wouldn't even try. I would probably just use a different system for that. But it's an interesting concept. Might be fun to explore someday. Okay, anyway, that was a fun little deviation. And I misremembered what page we left on. Here we are. All right, we won't do that again. The protagonists of the story are its beating heart. Create the heroes of the story or support other players as they do so using hero creation rules and fellowship creation rules. One thing that's cool, and I mentioned this in the Discord last night, is the Wake of the Old Ways campaign that's in the Hearts of Ravensdale book. You do not create the fellowship theme and tags until after you have finished the first adventure. So I think that's just a nice way to kind of slowly onboard and ramp in a new group to the game. Just that many fewer things to keep your mind on. Familiarize yourself with the heroes and become their biggest fan. That's frequently a PBTA thing. We're not here to like beat them down and win. We're here to give them like cathartic and satisfying challenges that they can overcome and maybe sometimes won't, but always push the story forward in a way that's satisfying to the characters. One of your main roles would be to put events and challenges in their path that would reveal their true nature, for better or worse, and help them complete or abandon their quests. Okay, this is actually important, so we're going to pick it to death like we do. One of your main roles, okay, so this is not saying this is the point of the game, but it is calling out specifically one of the main roles is to reveal their true nature, which means the game is very interested in who are these characters. Mechanically, the game is interested in who are these characters because the tags and the themes and everything are explicitly things that are true about them in the world and the story, and those give them mechanical weight. So they have what's true about their character they can use as levers to pull in the story to make things go their way, hopefully, if they can, or work against them because they have weakness tags. But ultimately, even a broader goal of revealing their true nature is a overarching goal of the game system itself. A goal, not the only goal, but again, it says one of your main roles is to do this, and then one of your other main roles is help them complete or abandon their quests. This doesn't care which of those it is. It's just saying, and Alejandra said this greatly, I don't remember which stream it was we were on, where I kept talking about how the game was about growth, and she was like, well, growth as a subset of change. And then you see, the examples of, and we were just talking about this last night. We jumped on a call, a few of us, to go through character creation ideas. And the examples in the book of like the powerful dragon becoming like a quiet fisherman on the shore or whatever. So that's it's about change, not necessarily growth. You can grow, but you can also regress, or you could have a growth that takes you away from power down in might level, down to adventure or origin. So complete or abandon their quests, but as the GM, you are supposed to throw those things at them. I think this is, in my read of this system so far, this is one of the biggest, most important things that you need to absolutely have your finger on as the GM, as the narrator, is you need to know what all of your characters' quests are, which means you've got a hefty list. They've got 4 theme tags, or theme cards, whatever you want to call them, and a fellowship. So you have 4x4 players, 16 to manage, on top of a fellowship, because I think the fellowship gets a quest too. And that is where you're supposed to be challenging them. The implication of their weakness tags is also something that you should be watching and doing. If they're not invoking their weakness tags, you can do it for them, but that's more of like a day-to-day, like bookkeeping type of thing. This is the overarching, if you want to really, I think, make the system sing at what it's good at, is you have to put these quests, milestones, choices in front of them so that they as the player have the autonomy to choose which way they want to go. in some cases succeeding a quest. And Logan was just in here, and we were talking about one of his quests last night about letting someone go. Like the actual succeeding of the quest is like putting their memory to rest and moving on. That's the success. So succeeding the quest almost is abandon, but it's framed in a way that makes it a improve, where you're improving or evolving the theme. So it's really cool, the stuff you could do with this system. Okay, 15 minutes on page 1. That's expected. Adventures. What kind of adventure will the heroes embark on? What drives them to undertake it? These are things they just want us to be thinking about. Stakes, locations, and challenges. So we're going to break these out because they're in bold, so that's good. Many ways to come by the details. Improvise, sure. Actually, this is really good to read. The details of adventure can be improvised as you go along. Now, I have a hesitation there because the challenges themselves have some stat blocks to them that actually are kind of mechanically crunchy. And this is if you're going to be using detailed resolution. You may recall, if you don't, there are 3 resolution levels in Legend of the Mist. I always mix up which of the first 2 is which, but basically the first one, quick or simple, is you just decide what happens because it makes sense in the story and you move on. So that's simple, I think. The other one is quick, where you're just rolling 2d6 plus however many power you're adding to it, subtracting negative status, that sort of thing. And then you're looking at the result bands, 1 to 6, 2 to 6, really. I guess it could be 1 or less. 6 and below is that's why they do that. 6 and below, 7 to 9, 10 plus. And then the last being the detailed resolution, where you add up your power, you keep that number off to the side, and then if you succeed, you spend that power to do things. You have to do the things in the narrative, but then you also mechanically get to do things. Impose tags, remove negative tags, put negative statuses on. If you want to trip somebody, now they have the tripped tag or trait. So it meshes what's happening in the narrative with what's happening in the game. And the detailed resolution, like there's actual stat blocks for things. There's stat blocks kind of for crossing the mountain. There's stat blocks for enemies. There's stat blocks for convincing villagers to do a certain thing if you're going to go to that level of detail with those things. I'm really excited to go through Wake of the Old Ways to learn and actually see all this stuff in action and the guidance it gives me on the way. I think if I were running this freeform, I would very rarely use that detailed resolution. Only maybe for significant encounters or whatever it might be. Yeah, the Tregs. That's right. You love that internal growth / closure with an appearance of external surrender. Yeah, you would have really loved being in that call last night, D Priest. It was really some cool work we did, and Logan was really gracious. He was like, "Hey, here's my character sheet. Anybody have any thoughts?" And I was like, "Do you all want to jump in a call and we'll like talk about it?" And just kind of, it was good. It was good practice for all of us to learn the system. So thank you, Logan, for letting us do that with your character sheet. God, I am so long-winded. You can use the Oracle to generate them for you as you go along. I haven't looked at the Oracle. What I recall is it's not super robust, but maybe we'll look at it today. It might be deeper than I realize. Actually, I think it is because it has columns. So one result is actually like 5 results, depending on which column you're rolling on. Yeah, man, you're great. You're a good one. You can use pre-made published adventures, etc. This is kind of funny because it's as if they hadn't named it yet in Hearts of Ravensdale when they finally finished this PDF, which makes sense. I mean, this was released to backers about 6 months before Hearts of Ravensdale in PDF. They did let me upgrade my pledge, by the way. I reached out to support and I was like, "Hey, so I read your stupid Hearts of Ravensdale book and it's awesome. Can I upgrade to get that physical too?" You can prepare your own by collecting all the elements needed in advance as explained in Designing Adventures in Series. Yeah, so I have seen too in this book. I'm calling this book. This is volume 2. When they ship these, they're going to be separate books. It's one PDF here, but it's going to be separate books. So in this book, there is a lot of guidance on like campaign structure, and there's this thing called the mountain method, which kind of looks like the layer cake method, which I just finally read about a couple weeks ago. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Who wants to give who more money? Also, why didn't my thing refresh? Hold on. Speaking of that, did I not save it? That would be annoying. I'm trying to be professional up in here. Hold on. Refresh. Yeah, why didn't that? Okay, whatever. It's worked now. Okay, stakes. The heroes need. Oh, I get it. You're talking about me upgrading my book. Yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? The heroes need a reason to go on a journey of change, whether it is a personal one or a grand quest, even though this reason is not always immediately evident. If you're planning a series, think of the series stakes. Okay, this is just general good campaign creation advice. I did get there in the end, D-Priest. Thank you. I struggle sometimes. I tell you what, like, one of the hardest things that I've had to adapt to streaming is, like, the chat lag is not even that bad. It's maybe, like, 30 seconds to a minute. But by the time the chat comes in that you guys have responded to me and the time that I get to see it, I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, my brain has moved on. For each adventure, choose adventure stakes on a smaller scale. Sure. Stakes should okay, super bold. The stakes should always be connected to the hero's personal quests, to the fellowship quest, or to their other goals. I feel like I could just let that breathe for a minute. Like there's nothing I can add to that will say it any more clearly than what it just said. It does say always, though. This is not, I guess this is what I'll say. This is not a game for the GM to tell a story, the must-story GM. No, because your story is, you are being told to connect it to the hero's personal quests, mechanical element, to the fellowship quest, mechanical element, or to their other goals, which then you get a little more loosey with it. But it's like, if you're not connecting to those, you're doing it wrong. This is not GM storytelling time. It's table storytelling time. It's important. Locations are where the scenes of your adventure take place. Sure, of course, locations are places, and we tell stories in places. Envision them in your mind and jot some details about each. So Pepper was talking about this the other day, about how she was really enjoying that the system really forced her to develop a skill that she's been working on, and I'm also terrible at this, of actually, like, accurately describing scenes. If you look at the stuff that I write in Play by Post, it is all about character, reactions, emotions, inner thoughts, and dialogue. And I'm like, I don't know how many chairs there are against the wall in the tavern. I have no idea. I don't know what the table layout looks like. I have to figure it out for myself to be in the scene, but I never actually put it into writing. As far as writing itself is concerned, not that I've written in a while. Guys, I should write a book. Should I write a book? I should. I really should one of these days. Yeah, now my head's going all sorts of different places. But that would be a weakness that I would need to address, is I would probably get the entire first draft of the book down on page, and then I'd go back and be like, now, what does it look like? Add it in later in post. It's kind of odd because most GM storytelling tips always tell you that you can add players' backgrounds, but that you should focus on your tale. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Which books are these that you're seeing that? I don't know that I have seen that, and I'm not saying I don't believe you either. But that feels like an older approach, perhaps, maybe. Something that kind of got swept away in more recent times. I don't know. Anyhow, you can use images or maps. Of course you can. To win the stakes, the heroes must overcome challenges. Capital C challenge. This is everything. Fighting a monster is a challenge. Crossing the mountain is a challenge. Convincing the villagers is a challenge. Everything is a challenge. This would be, I guess, what you would call an encounter in, like, Pathfinder 2, but not really, because encounter is very narrow. This is very broad. This is for everything. Yeah, accessing all five senses. I think it was Ben in the Knights of Last Call Discord that when he would GM, he would have a sticky note up on his monitor or wherever he was playing through. And I think that was one of the things one of his sticky notes always said was, like, senses. Like, appeal to the senses of what they're feeling, yeah, and seeing or hearing. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting hobby that has attracted a wide berth of how to approach the same hobby in different ways. And that's kind of a nice thing about it. It's kind of a positive in a way, as long as everybody can get along and respect and be like, you want to do it that way? Okay. Like, have fun over there. We're going to be over here crying and emoting because it's London Station and that's what we do. Telling people they're ungrateful. Let's see. Anything can be a challenge in the story. I keep doing this. I stop. I'm like, hey guys, this is important. And then the next sentence says what I was going to say. Anything can be a challenge in the story, from a toxic relative to a devouring monster, from a dark forest that must be traversed to a tome of secrets that must be deciphered. Speaking of me going hyper into analyzing text, okay, you guys won't know this yet. And I'm so proud of myself for this. There was one line, I think it was either the very first stream or the first stream we looked at Hearts of Ravensdale, that I like stopped and I fixated on and I obsessed about. I was like, this is such a beautiful like concept. This is so amazing. I'm not going to tell you which one it is. And then I go on and I read into like the secret GM world building chapter of Hearts of Ravensdale, and I'm like, oh shit, that line was really important and it is relevant. The radar was right. Let me weep, damn it. Yeah. If you're not crying, are you even... I'm kidding, by the way, because some people think I'm serious about this stuff, where I'm like, if you're not crying, are you even role-playing? I'm joking. That is a joke. Yeah, that scene was, man, that scene was heavy. We were talking about the three of us, Logan, Kalana, and I were in a fantastic game of Fiasco, along with another Patreon member, and D-Priest, who's here, who ran it for us. And yeah, it got emotional. It was fun. The Oracle is a tool for generating adventure scenes. We know what oracles do. I don't need to read this, probably, unless it says something cool. Nope, nothing there for me. Playing a session. Okay, whenever you sit down to tell a story, that's a session. They control pacing, mood, and unfolding of the story with their choices. Okay, this is neat. This is neat. We're categorizing the choices that the director is making. Sorry, narrator. Yeah, they ran a really good story for us. That was fun. Choices are, which scene will come next? So presumably, and we understand this as storytellers at large, the story is what we choose to reveal. There's always stuff going on off screen or out of frame. And this is, I don't know, maybe I'm just weirdly fixating on this, but like, I mean, I kind of described this too when I was running Girl by Moonlight or anything that's really, 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 really low prep where you can just wing it. I reveal to you where you shine the flashlight. And until you shine a flashlight on it, it doesn't even exist. I'm like, it could be anything. But you start to look at it, and it's like the quantum physics thing. It's like observing the thing makes it seen or whatever. Anyway, which scene will come next? I don't think many people think of this as a choice. I think we just kind of are like, yeah, and then this kind of makes sense. But it actually is a choice that we get to make. What developments will unfold during a scene? Naturally. Which hero will get the spotlight next? This is specifically to like a kind of turn-to-turn moment. There is no initiative in Legend of the Mist. It is all about narrative pacing and spotlighting, and as if it were a film where the camera is looking at that particular moment is what we're doing. Yeah, Schrodinger's RPG. Whether to resolve a hero's quick action with a simple, quick, or detailed. Simple comes first. Simple comes first. Simple and then quick. Simple and then quick. I will remember this. Somebody test me later. Let's see if I can. I was hoping this would be alphabetical too, but no. Q comes first in the alphabet. Brutal. I need something to help me remember. And then what the consequences of actions will be and whether a hero can react to them. This is important too. Obviously, we're deciding what consequences are, which if you're using stat blocks, they will tell you what threats you can establish, and they will tell you what the consequences of them not being addressed are, and that makes it, quite a bit easier. This as well, though, deciding whether or not a hero can react to them is definitely a subjective thing. And I don't know how else to put it. You have to make that call in the moment. It's not guaranteed. Let me make this bigger. There we go. Good point. Yeah, no initiative. Table should look out for each other to ensure everyone gets some spotlight. Yeah, you hear this talked about too, where it's like, well, one of the complaints about spotlighting systems is some will say, oh, but the person who wants all the attention will just like hog it all, and the person who like doesn't want the attention will just like be meek and they won't speak up. And it's like you might have to address that. I love the spotlight, but I'm also I'm also trying to be conscious of like passing it around too. So, but yeah, I'm potentially at risk for being that first example. Let me say my cool things, damn it. I got cool things to say. Or like literally, when we went into Act 2 of that Fiasco game, and everybody else was on break, I was like, can I just claim the next scene? I got a bomb strapped to my chest, and I got something I want to do with it. Yeah, Daggerheart. Yeah, same challenge. Not that I've read or seen anything about Daggerheart, but I'm in Legend in the Mist mode. I'm in my Legend in the Mist arc. My anime arc is Legend in the Mist. The storyteller sets the scene and portrays all non-hero characters and forces. Yeah. It's interesting, too, that the game does this. And this is, I don't even know if I'd call this a nitpick. It's just interesting. It seems like there was a lot of work in establishing, maybe this was more in Hearts of Ravensdale, where it's like you're not heroes. You're just people who might do heroic things. But then when they want to refer to them in a mechanical way, they do use capital H hero and then non-capital H hero, which is interesting. Just a language challenge there. They describe the situation, people react. We saw the gameplay loop earlier establish. I forget what it is, but yeah, the 3-step thing. They're the referee. They decide which tags to introduce and when they expire, and make rulings about player actions, such as what can and cannot be done in a scene, which tags are helpful or hindering, and which tags are direct, indirect, or irrelevant. This was a really cool thing that came up last night when we were all talking. Pepper was saying that, well, first of all, she was saying that the system, like a lot of PBTA games, she used the phrase collapses gracefully, which I think is in some writing out there. The idea that, like, if you miss some of the more complicated rules, like the baseline engine of a Powered by the Apocalypse game, if all you had was 2d6 plus a number, then you could make it work, which, we did that last Sunday. After stream, we did like a spontaneous, some of us did like a spontaneous PBTA sci-fi thing that I ran. And it's basically like when you're unsure, do 2d6 and just use that framework. So, excuse me, if you miss something, it's not the end of the world. But also, so she was saying that as she's been running Legend in the Mist for her group, that she forgot that might was a thing at all. And we haven't looked at might in any of these streams yet either, because it's a little bit more tricky of a thing where, if you have origin themes and adventure themes and greatness themes, like the way those interact may at times grant a numerical bonus, whether something's imperiled or advantaged or whatever terms they use. But she was saying, like, you could also just use might to be like, no. She said last night, like, if there is an adventure level magical thing going on and you have origin level ways of dealing with it, it's basically the game telling you, like, no, you cannot solve this with the tools you currently have. Go find different tools or go try something different. Whereas you can kind of brute force it using this might system. You can also just use that to say, basically, this cannot be done in this scene, which is where I went on that tangent. Okay, they're the host of the game. They manage the conversation, keep the game flowing, set the atmosphere. And then I guess we go even more depth into this in a little bit. Yeah, collapses gracefully. That's a good point, too. Yeah, if you have a table that are too considerate, they're just like, no, don't focus on me because you need to, yeah. It is a challenge. Beautiful art again. Look at that. Cozy. Don't know why this dude's got his sword on his shoulder, of all places, but it's not my business. How to make choices when narrating. I love that this is even a header and that this is even a page in this book. Right out the gate. It evolves, so they're calling it out here. I've seen people, when they first looked at this game, they were just like, man, it seems like this game puts a lot on the GM, and it's like, yeah, but, it's what it is. Being the narrator involves a lot of choices and decision-making. It is a form of art. There are many ways to do it, and different narrators and players prefer different narration styles. When making choices, they can draw on many different sources, use prepared resources, aka the rules of the game. I love this. Here's one option, use the rules, but then the implicit is like, maybe don't use the rules if you don't need to or don't want to. That's funny. Use prepared adventures, draw from, so the sheets of the characters themselves are what you would call prepared resources. I kind of like how they grouped that together. That's cool. Choose based on narrative considerations, what makes sense, what's consistent with the story so far, what's cool in the moment, what would make for better storytelling, or improvise and follow creative flair. Sure. Use your social skills. Go by what is fair, read the room, sense the needs of the group and of individual players. That's actually a really neat call out. We had a robust discussion the other day, as we do sometimes, about changing the results of dice. As you can imagine, that's a very contentious topic. And one of the comments that is kind of tough to challenge is this idea that, like, at the end of the day, you want everyone to have a good time, which is true. But it's all about getting everybody on the same page with consent about what you will change and what you will not change. And if you have a group who says, you know what, every now and then, if you want to change the results of a die roll, I'm fine with that, and you get their consent, then God bless, go on and do your thing. But if you have a group who does not want to see that, and they say, look, I already give, and this was my take, I already give so much control over to you as the GM. The one thing I don't want you to change is the results of the dice, because I've made my decisions to lead up to the moment that I rolled that die, and I want that to matter. But it's a really robust conversation. And this here calls out, and it gives you the ability to say, you know, what is fair, which, I mean, that alone could be its own paragraph of, like, what does that mean? What is fair? But this right here, read the room, sense the needs of the group and of individual players. It's neat to see that called out. Again, you don't want to invalidate, but as long as you communicate above board what's happening, I think you can do that in a respectful way. Or delegate the decision. Ask the oracle or the group. That's great. Narrative considerations. The term narrative considerations will come up a lot in this volume. In a nutshell, it means what you feel is best for the story right now. Human beings are natural storytellers. Draw on all you know about storytelling from books, comics, TV shows, movies, and other works of fiction, and rely on your own taste and creativity, or ask the group. Yeah. I mean, this is. I could see this being a little contentious. Some people think, like, no, you should do, and maybe what they mean by this is you should do what makes sense back over here. What makes sense and what's consistent with the story so far. Yeah, anyway, I don't need to go into that. Look at your players. You are facilitating for other players. They're an active audience and fellow storytellers. Check in by reading their expressions and body language and listening to them. It's impossible to make everyone happy all the time. Disagree. Sorry. Nope. Disagree. It is difficult to make everyone happy all the time. It is not impossible. You should try to make everybody happy, I think. I'm going to tell a work story. We were in a giant work meeting, like everybody from the manager level and up. So that's like 45 people, because it's a very broad organization. And this topic came up of, like, well, you can't make everybody happy all the time. And I was like, but shouldn't we try as a provider of services? Like, shouldn't we attempt to make everybody happy? Because even if we fail, we will have hit a higher mark. Like, I was like, is there any reason you can tell me that I shouldn't try to make everybody happy? And this individual in organization was just like, no. And I was like, what? We get along fine now, but he was new, and I was like, what? What are you talking about? So no, it's not impossible. Oftentimes a player can be unengaged for reasons unrelated to you as the narrator or story. Yeah, fair. But reading your audience is a good performative skill for a narrator to cultivate. I don't know if I've ever seen this advice in a rule book. And I'm not going to pretend like I've read all the rule books in the world. But I don't know if I've ever seen a rule book say, like, literally, look at their body language. Watch their reactions. This might be second nature to some people and be like, why did you feel the need to write that? But there might be a player out there or a narrator who reads this and they go like, oh, good point. Scribble, notes down. So I really appreciate this. This is cool. Capitalism, making all numbers go up except happiness. Some people are happy. Some people are very happy. Maybe. Presumably. We're told they are. Let the narrative surprise you. Even though as the narrator you have great power, you do not have full control over the narrative. True. I love that, like, me ranting about capitalism, I've literally been told now by 2 different people that they're like, oh, that's why I started following your channel. I'm like, oh, God. I'm glad. I probably turned off a bunch of other people, but I like the ones I got. The best role-playing moments happen when you let go of how you think the story will unfold, stay open to having the hero's actions surprise you, and know that whenever you let the dice have a say, they are sure to surprise you as well, which is the point, which is what I was saying the other day. You can also have events develop in unexpected ways by simply asking the players questions about their heroes or their world and then using their answers as a springboard. This is great too. This is a great technique when you have a player who is struggling to play their character, I guess is just the way to put it. Describe something that happens and then be like, how do they think about that? Like, what do they feel about that? And you'll have players, and I've had this every now and then, where they're just like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, every answer is fine. How do they think about that? How do they feel about that? And it might just be that they're like, I don't have enough knowledge of this character's past or history or backstory to answer that. And I'm like, great, perfect. What if we just chose right now? Just choose. Don't make it about being the right answer for who the character is. Just decide. And then we can say a new question. Why do they feel and think that way about it? What could have happened in their past? What might be the reason that they would have arrived at that feeling, thought, or conclusion? And now we're building backstory into answering how and why they even reacted the way they did. I love it. That's my jam. Can we eat the rich in this game? I don't know if there are rich in this game. I mean, what is it called? High Helm? Stormhelm? High Storm? Whatever the city is in the northeast. But they've got kind of their own problems going on. Yeah. Question springboard. Very good. Remember, you play to find out what happens next. This is also PBTA language. Play to find out. In the 5th edition of Vampire, they really emphasize on this. Asking someone how they feel in the moment is huge. It might not even move anything forward, but the discovery is beautiful. Absolutely. That's what I'm all about, man. Yeah, these World of Darkness, Chronicles of Darkness, whatever they are, these games, would probably really appeal to me. I just haven't ever really dived into them. Somebody purchased for me the Changeling, the Dreaming, which was the original. I don't understand the World of Darkness different versions, and I don't get it. Haven't looked into it closely enough, but yeah, when you look at the book and you're just like, dang, this thing is like 3/4 setting, and then like I was like, where are the rules? They're like way in the back, and it's just like you have some like ranks and things, and you roll dice occasionally. I'm like, okay, that'd be really fun with the right group. How to narrate in a nutshell. It's a tight space, so you got to get cozy. Your role, we went over that. Director, storyteller, referee, host. I love how they break things down the way that Son of Oak has written this, where they're just like, there are categories of things, and here we're giving them names. I like it. Makes it fun to study. Setting up a game we went through. Choose the setting, Heroes Fellowship Adventure Series. Changeling the Lost is one of the best games ever. Yeah. I've heard it's good. You roll a shit ton of dice and sometimes get hangry. That's a great tagline. I'm assuming that's for Vampire. All right, running a session. Choose the next scene and play it. Hold on, give me 1 second here. Oh, I can breathe again. An expected scene or an unexpected scene. What do they mean by that? What do they mean by that? To whom? Expected. This has got to be framed in the point of view of the player, right? Like they're expecting to go somewhere next versus they're surprised because you as the narrator are choosing. So I don't know what it would mean by unexpected unless it's like appealing back to that kind of, let your intuition guide you kind of a thing. Not sure what they mean by this. I'm guessing we're going to get into more detail. Scene types. So we're going categorical again. Standard scene, journey montage, camping or sojourn montage, or cutscene. Journey and camping or sojourn are different. Presumably have different rules. We'll find out. Oh, adjusting difficulty, huh? Okay. Encounter design. Equip your challenges with more tags and statuses, increase challenges limits, present more challenges, confront heroes with challenges they are unaccustomed to, present mightier challenges, or create harsher environments. This will be fun. I love talking about difficulty in encounter design because I have a chart. It's a famous chart. I might have to pull it up right now, actually. Sorry, I gotta find this. I didn't know this would be the stream where I talked about it, but it is. Today's the day. Let's see if I can find this bad boy. But I get so frustrated when people solve games. They solve the meta of a game, and then they get like upset that it's been solved. And then it's just like, this game's boring because all you have to do is these 7 moves in a row, and it always works. And I'm like, then stop doing that. And they're like, well, but I have to win. And it's like, I see. You have a GM that is playing towards the upper levels of difficulty at all times. And they are not giving you the latitude or the freedom to explore suboptimal options, which opens up the breadth of the game. And so you are not seeing anything else. I'm going to have to keep vamping here because I'm not finding it. So I don't know. It might be on one of my other Google accounts, but I'm going to find it because it's one of my things. I do know another place that I shared it, so I might have to go grab it from there. Overlays. Aha! I found it. This is in my other account. Now, of course, I have the task of making sure I pull it up as a source. Let me try this way. Well, hold on. I'm getting my life together. Yes, there it is. There's my child. My beautiful, beautiful baby. The viability versus difficulty chart. On the bottom axis, we have the difficulty. This is where the GM, 0 through 10, is cranking up the difficulty of whatever you're facing. Okay? So as your difficulty increases, on the y-axis is the number of options within the game that are actually relevant. So you see that? As difficulty increases from left to right, the viability of the options that are printed in the game is on a downward negative slope to the point where if you're at a maximum difficulty of 10, you're only using this. These are just random numbers, but like 10% of the options in a given rule set or book, because that's all you have to. You have to go absolute max to try and survive. This band here from 8 to 10 I identified is the target difficulty for those who want to play for the challenge. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. What grinds my gears is when people play over here and they solve the meta and then they go, yeah, this game's boring. This game sucks, even. Even if they got bored with it, if they want to move on to the next meta to solve on a different game, they want to go solve the meta in Draw Steel. They want to go solve the meta in whatever else is coming out, Nimble, whatever. I don't know. If they want to just move on, that's fine. But then for these people to sit there and be like, the game's broken, it's busted, it's stupid, casting doesn't work, nothing works, everything sucks. It's like, Jesus Christ, like your GM is ramping you into, like, take this triangle, cut it off, put it down here. You're using 20% of the options. I want to live in the 4 to 6 difficulty range, personally. This is where I think like New Dawn sits. We're all very much like, hey, we are not optimized. Do not throw hard stuff at us. You will kill us. Because we are sitting here trying to explore what it looks like to be the wandering chef archetype, or take skill feats to have like a mentee in the temple that we can have a cooking competition with. Whereas people would be like, I would never take that feat. If that's a general feat slot, I'm going to use that to get an extra class feat, and then I'm going to go ham and smash things with my hammer. Okay. But what happens if you have a GM who actually leverages down the difficulty? And in Pathfinder, this is all Pathfinder stuff. In Pathfinder, they give you 5 different bands of difficulty range. Depending on what you choose, tells you how many experience points of budget you have to create that encounter. And when people are jamming the top end, severes and extremes, every single time, you are now forced to eliminate from your consideration the top 70% of options that get printed. And it makes me cranky, as you can tell. I'm very passionate about this chart. And I have this little red triangle up here. Like, in a game of any sort, you're going to have stuff that's just like, this is just bad. Never take this. Could it be usable if you have like a difficulty of 0? Sure. But the red is just the trash. The blue here is the peak meta, always good, practically required at top tier difficulties. And the green, fun things that get seen less and less the higher the difficulty demand is. This is my personal target difficulty because it allows for more player expression. I'm going to clip that as its own video. I love my chart. I love it so much. I love how these newer games are finding ways to codify squishy styles of storytelling that people were doing but didn't define before. Yeah. I'm glad you like the chart. I love this chart. I made this like 2 years ago. I went off on it. You know, the funny thing about Ike's is he does not actually throw that high of budget encounters at us. He actually, like, he might be like running at a 7. The dragon fight that we always talk about where we're like, yeah, we almost got absolutely slaughtered. He was like, that was a moderate encounter by XP. It's like, yeah, but it was a dragon and he could fly, so maybe bump that up one. But like, he's just like, I'm not trying to kill you guys. I'm just running things efficiently. And we're like, yeah, we know. We just suck. You always made combat avoidable optional up to a point, and most of your players would opt out of combat. Yeah, it depends on how the group wants to handle it. I mean, Legend in the Mist is very explicitly like, okay. Now, this was the other stream topic we almost did today. I was leaning towards doing more Legend in the Mist. And then last night, I don't know, I was like laying down to like rest or whatever because I'm still sick. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I need to do an entire stream about violence in RPGs as an entire topic. And how violence is actually horrifying if you really think about it. And like so many games just like, they're just like, yeah, we get it, but we also want to like fight things, so like let's just not think about it too much. And then you have other games that are like, here's all these options for you to avoid violence in combat. It's going to be an amazing stream when I feel up to doing it. So much of this is on GM's understanding that challenge comes in more forms than combat and death threat. Yeah. There are fates worse than death. Absolutely. Thank you guys for loving the chart. I love this thing so much. And I'm ready to go to battle for this chart. Anytime somebody starts slamming a system, I'm like, did the system give you difficulty bands to work with? Yeah. Are you using only the top end? Yeah. Do you realize you're telling your players, hey, only use the best stuff and never consider anything else? No, I didn't think of it like that. I'm like, I know you didn't. Wow. Wow. That's me soapboxing. Now, where did my PDF go? Come back. Oh no, I might have broken it. Don't make me re-add the scene. You're smarter than this. Oh, there we go. There we go. You'll bring your hypothesis about the video games cause violence concept. I mean, that's its own topic even there. Yeah. Yes. Yes. We know. But he's still very adamant about it being a moderate encounter. So the meme I usually use for this is the Simpsons one where it's like, don't make me tap the sign again. I've used that for this chart before. I'm like, don't make me tap the chart again. I love the chart. So it's neat that even a game like this, where everything is so fluffy fluid, it's like, hey, here is how you can adjust the difficulty and make it harder. So I appreciate that. Give me the tools to do what I'm trying to do when I'm trying to do it. Seems like a fair ask. All right, during a scene, okay, this is still under the umbrella of adjusting difficulty. During a scene, make more threats. Be stricter with what tags and statuses you allow as directly helpful. This, by the way, there are ways where you could say, hey, that won't be directly helpful, but I'll let you do that thing you're describing to set up something else. So this is like, you'll see this in Forged in the Dark. Sometimes systems have a setup move, or not move, but an action you can take. Girl by Moonlight has a setup action, which is not always, the best thing to do, but sometimes it is. Deliver heavy-handed consequences. Use their weakness tags for consequences more often, which will give them improve, right? I think you mark improve when you use a weakness tag. I'm learning. Target their weak spots. What? There's no such thing as a mechanical weak spot. What are you saying? That's basically telling you to like go after the things they care about. if you want to adjust the difficulty. Optional rules cap each roll at 3 power tags max. This is a heavy-handed guideline for the players who are just like, well, I'm just going to use all 8 of these every single time because I took a tag that just says like good in combat. I'm like, you can't use good in combat as a tag. Who do you think you're fooling? So this was an optional rule that came out during playtesting where people were like, well, and maybe I think it came out even before when they were doing Otherscape and maybe even City of Mist, where they're just like, look, if this is a problem for your particular table, just tell them like, can't use more than 3. Deal with it. Or lower the hero's limits. What? Does that mean lowering the status thresholds from 5 and 6 down to 4 and 5? That's brutal. Yeah. Tag of an injured leg. I guess. Yeah. That would be a way to do it. Or add companions to reduce the difficulty. Sure. Give them more resources. All right, we're back to the loop. Establish action consequences. Until the stakes are won, lost, or deferred. Establish. Describe or redescribe the scene. Add story tags if needed. Max 3. Did not know that. Highlight the stakes. Introduce challenges. Make threats. Present dilemmas. Give the spotlight. This is a good list. And this is also one of their, like quick cheat page looking things where they have all these little text boxes. They have a lot of these in this system. Hero's action. We listen to the action's description. This might be procedural. I got to pay attention to this. If needed, break it down to smaller actions or require a tag to perform. Yeah, definitely break it down if you can. Like the example is always like, I leap over the banister and jump onto the chandelier, swing across the room, and land on top of the enemy with my sword pointed straight down at his heart. It's like, maybe let's see if you can latch onto the chandelier first, and then we'll quick switch, spotlight and see what's happening elsewhere, and then we'll come back and see if you can pull off the next thing. Simple for what is certain or not yet dramatic, especially perceiving, moving, or conversing. It's an interesting way to describe that. I like it. Quick short form for yes, no outcome. It's more than yes, no, though. It's yes and yes, but. No and no but, no. Detailed when there's a challenge limit to max. When you want to measure success, when you want the player to define their own success. Interesting. Does that imply that in this quick resolution, you are not letting the player define their own success? It can be part of the conversation, but I'm curious if this is trying to say that, like, in this quick one, the GM is supposed to just tell you how you succeed. I don't think that's the case, though. We'll see. Simple outcome. Consider, respect tags, choose whether it succeeds, choose whether it has consequences. So, even for the one where you don't roll, you can still deliver consequences, which is important. Supporting a roll happens in quick or detailed, also as a reaction. Consider the might, rule out tags that are irrelevant, rule out tags that are indirectly relevant. Right, because these would be, if they're indirectly relevant, then they can be used for setup, but not for the main action. Invoke tags from the target of the action, the opposition or the environment, right, because those could negate power that's being used. And invoke a hero's weakness tags, and then supporting spend. Rule out effects that do not match the action. Yeah. So that's only for detailed resolution. Okay. This is going to be interesting to see in play-by-post, guys. This is going to be very interesting to see how smoothly we can do this, because every action can have kind of quite a bit of back and forth between me and you guys that are playing. So I might find a way to collapse that down. Basically just setting the ground rules of, like, when you do your action, I want you to also, like, tell me the things that you expect to happen, so that in one response I can tell you not this but that, and then we move forward. We'll figure it out. I've done other PBTA and play-by-post, so we can make it work. Consequences. Deliver them if a threat was not addressed. The action roll generated consequences, so 6 minus 7 to 9. You choose to invoke a weakness tag for consequences. This I need to get more clarity on. Because invoking the weakness tag already gives a -1. So what are we talking about here? This seems like a different lever to pull that we've probably read before, but I'm just not keeping in the front of my mind. Okay. We're an hour in. We've gone 13 pages. That's about right. Narrative consequences. Okay, these come up all the time. I was looking for these the other day. This is also going to take a long time to go through. When you're looking at consequences in like stat blocks or in these published adventures, they just say like, here's a like this person refuses to work with you anymore, and then in parentheses it says blocked, and I was like, that's clearly rules text. Where is that? This is it right here. These are specific named consequences that get referenced in these challenge like stat blocks. So blocked, a course of action is no longer possible. That makes sense. Complication, heroes are placed in an undesirable position. Exposure, something the heroes don't want known is revealed. Ill tidings, something bad happens around the heroes but not to them. This is cool. This is your like think off screen. It could be off screen or it could just be not immediately affecting them. It could be just, down the way. Evelyn gets attacked by a time creature would be a perfect example of that. A new challenge, a new problem enters the scene. Yes, but you place a limit or constraint on a successful action. Let's finish this page, and then I'm going to actually go to a stat block, and I'll show you how these look. Because I need to see how they look. All right, so you can also deliver negative effects. Give the hero a negative status or tag. Remove from the hero a positive status or tag. Give a challenge a positive status or tag. Remove from a challenge a negative status or tag. Advance or set back a status tracking a process. This is kind of like the GM spending or the narrator spending power. So I wonder if there are any limits on that. Although these things are all being described as things you can do. So we could map that to the power that is relevant to those things. Okay. And it looks like most of these are all costing 1 or 2 power. So basically, as a consequence, right? Yeah, as a consequence, you basically have 1 to 2 power to kind of freely spend. Yeah, from what little I know of both of those. Yeah, but it does seem to be kind of capped at like these 1 to 2 power thresholds. Like you're not going to go crazy with it. But this one's actually really interesting, and I wonder if they'll get into this more. Advance or step back is status tracking a process. That's a clock. That's using statuses as clocks, which is clever. And you should, because they're numerical. They can take up and down. They're generally, 4 to 6 segments. It's a great thing to use. You can force the hero to choose between consequences. Ouch. Ouch. Yeah. Either, this is the Spider-Man dilemma, right? Do you save the bus full of people or do you save Mary Jane? If you use effects, choose whether to allow a reaction. Can the hero defend themselves from this? Huh? That might also give you an opportunity to go a little harder if you know that you're going to allow a reaction. That can kind of like buy you some free will in advance. Goodwill in advance, rather. Okay, wrapping up a scene is its own thing on 30 pages down the road. Denouement. Follow-up actions and conversations, scene consequences, adventure consequences, if it's the last scene, and rewards. So this is all really, really descriptive of how this works, and they give you everything you need to know. It's just a lot to take in. Yeah, you're one of those. What was your quote the other day? You wanted to like burn your players' souls or something like that. Yeah, I got your number, D Priest. Okay, we're not going to start this yet. Look at this amazing art once again. Just all so good. Oh, and this stuff too. I found a short. I was going through Son of Oak's channel, and there was a short where Alejandra was talking about doing these types of pieces. So I'm pretty sure this is one of hers, where she was studying like historical, like edge, whatever they called, margin artwork and all this stuff. And this is that style. And it would be so easy to just quickly gloss over this, but there's so much detail here. Like, This is some sort of like treasure hoard of some kind. We got somebody fighting a beast. I don't know what they're doing. Kings and farmers approaching the king. This person's like weaving golden strands of fate is what I would say. But also this right here. Like, what is this element? There's like this something. The keystone is like sliding away to like reveal underneath. I don't know. It's cool. A giant dark hand reaching out of a dark cloud for a kingdom. And that is why I upgraded to get both books physically, because I was like, I'm going to want to just look at this stuff sometime. Okay, this is going to talk about scene framing and stuff, but I did want to go and show you guys. There's so much stuff. There's so much stuff in these books. Where would I find, like... Maybe we'll start here. Maybe we won't. I just want to see... Okay, here we go. We'll just do this. Homestead and Village. This is a subcategory in the book of lists of challenges. There's a challenge for outskirts and fields, on the trail, in the wilds, open water, forsaken places, town and city, the castle, on the battlefield, blighted badlands, vaults of darkness. It's a lot. It's all covered. So this is a challenge, and I think these here are like challenge ratings, which I'm sure it describes like how to determine the strength of a challenge. These are like kind of traits, kind of tags as far as the type, so that when you're reading this in a published material by Son of Oak, you can see kind of like their narrative role as a challenge. So they are a watcher and an aggressor. This avoided acquaintance. This is a person who used to be close to one or more of the heroes, a past friend, lover, family member, or moneylender, until something happened that broke the relationship and wounded their pride. Unfortunately, they're not over it. An avoided acquaintance seems to pop up when it's the least comfortable and can make things awkward for the hero by simply being around. They can be avoided again, but this only postpones the inevitable. So, you think of like stat blocks in games as being a specific thing. Like, this is the stat block for this specific type of goblin because this specific goblin throws javelins, whereas this specific goblin like knows how to throw fireballs. And so that's a totally different thing. This is like the opposite of that. They're like, this is the concept of an avoided acquaintance, and then they're like, it could be any of these several things. But the role that it's going to play in the story is this uncomfortable avoided acquaintance role. This is a stat block for like a narrative concept. And it's cool. But here's an example of what I was talking about. Also, this notion that avoided here is in the red, which means it's a limit tag. It's not a tag, it's a limit. But the limits here avoid. So you can take actions that increment avoiding them. And if you get to 3, they'll go away, but they're not going away for good. If you want to actually get rid of them, you have to appease them to 4. And then they have their statuses, the things that are relevant. None of this stuff you're supposed to see as players, by the way. This is why we're only going to look at one of these. Because you're not supposed to know in the game what the limits are. I may play a little looser with that, just for the sake of communication. But I may not. We'll see how it plays out. Avoided acquaintance goes hard for some of us. Yeah, it just might. But this is what I was talking about when I was flipping through. Meander into a position that blocks where the heroes want to go. So, again, okay, we haven't really gotten into this. This is the stuff I need to learn. This is listing the threats and consequences. This right here is the threat. The threat is they show up. That's enough of a threat. They appear at the most inopportune time without having seen the hero yet. So you establish the scene. Now the character is going to take an action. And if their action addresses this threat, this will not fire. But if their action fails, it might still trigger. These are the suggested consequences. You pick one of these. You could even roll to generate which of these you'd want it to be. And then you're in that kind of like quick resolve, like Dragonbane style, where the enemy has actions that they take on a 1d6 table, basically. So they may meander into a position that blocks where the hero wants to go. At this point, maybe they still don't know the hero's there, but now it's like, oh my god, like I can't get past them without them seeing me. And what it says here is that keyword that we were looking at earlier, that narrative consequence where it says blocked. So I started to see this and I was like, I don't know what that is. I need to go find that in the book. It is blocking a course of action unless the character just throws up their hands and they say, whatever, let's just go confront them face to face. Otherwise, it's saying you now need to find a different way. Fill the hero's heart with guilt. Give them a guilty to tag. So anytime that guilt would be relevant until that status is cleared, it's going to negatively affect whatever they do. Turn their head as if sensing the hero's around. So you give the hero the nervous tag, which can negatively impact anything they're trying to do. Excuse me, over there, isn't that? Gain alert 1 or remove 2 tiers from avoid. I mean, that kind of is a regression to the progress you've earned so far, so I don't know if I'd use that one. I don't know that I quite understand how alert 1 factors in there, but this is stuff I'll get better at once I learn more how these work. Yeah. I mean, and this goes into that topic of like, how do we feel about games that tell us how to feel or tell us how to role play or whatever? This goes that extra step, and it's like you feel guilty, and literally anything that you would do that would interface with how you are feeling guilty about your past relations with this person are going to negatively impact your mechanical effectiveness. So it does reach its hand into the narrative like that. That's what I think of when I think of what they call narrative mechanics, is that they are true in the mechanics just as they are true in the fiction. Spot the hero and march straight towards them. Exposure. So exposure was another one of those consequences, consequence types. So that's just one threat. As the GM, all you have to do is have them show up, because none of this might trigger. If they take actions and they succeed well enough, they get high enough power. Because we're talking about limits, we're talking about detailed resolution, which means you can put all the power you want into this thing and try and get high and basically apply a tier 3 status if you really blow it out of the water. Burn your tags for all the extra power you can think of, and you're just like, I just don't want to talk to this person. You know what? This is great. This just reminded me. This is Bilbo avoiding his cousins at the party in Lord of the Rings. Well, in the extended edition anyway. I think it's not in the theatrical, but they're trying to hide, him and Frodo. There are some people who do not like to be told how to feel. You have to really establish some things with players you don't know or haven't played with before. Yeah. And as with like statuses in a game like Pathfinder 2, when you get your frightened status, you don't have to role play how scared you are. I know I took frightened a couple times in that last fight, and I was like, well, I'm going to play into that. Like, because there was plenty to be afraid about there without even the status as well. But it's like not going to be the end of the world if somebody doesn't really ham up the guilt, but it is going to affect them mechanically, whether they do or don't. So it's definitely a game that that addresses that and puts it to the forefront. As someone who doesn't like being told how I feel / what to feel, I like this as an inspiration for roleplay. Yeah. Since you get to have a lot of choice on how that manifests. Right. It doesn't tell you what you do. It suggests how you feel. And you can take actions in defiance of that and just have a -2 because you're was it guilty 2? Yeah. Because it's a -2, you can still just blow through it. But then if you succeed anyway with the -2, that actually tells you something about how that resolved. It tells you that the character did an action that faced up to the guilt, and they didn't back down from it, and they took a -2 penalty as a result, and they still succeeded. So it still gives you the freedom of choice. So you're absolutely right. But anyway, this is just one threat. The other one is approach. So now let's say you did show up, something went wrong, they rolled low. Now you've got an exposure, narrative, consequence, and now you can establish. So you went establish, action, consequence. Now we're back to establish. Now they are approaching. Stop and stare with wide-eyed disbelief or a sad little smile. And then the player reacts to that. You don't give a consequence yet. You're just saying they saw you, they're walking over. Then when they fail again, you say, now they're asking how you've been, evoking story tags, sad memories, intentionally or not. There's give and take with it. Negative tag is going to happen, but you can always ask the player how this would affect the character, guilty, angry, etc. Yeah. Ask to be introduced to your friends wearing a poignant expression. Uncomfortable to everyone. You gotta love this. I mean, like, the stories you can tell with these challenge blocks are incredible. But like I said before, and then you really get down to it. Final threat, maybe a cost. Now you don't have to do these in order because narratively they might immediately see them and go straight to accosting them, bring up old issues with an accusatory tone. This is great, right? Like, you can see how this stat block is basically a scene. Oh gosh, where'd I go? Oh no, now I've done it. It's a scene and it's a challenge and a scene and an NPC all in one. Like, this is an encounter all unto itself. And so making these on the fly, this is where I think the game is asking you to do some prep. You either need to find these materials or get really good at freewheeling these consequences, which you could probably do. But it's this concept of, like, breaking down the threats that I think is going to take some practice and a muscle to work on. I think this is going to be incredible if somebody gets really good at applying it. So, yeah. Oh, Pepper, we're just going through at the painful, slow crawl speed of London Station, picking apart every single word and everything possible. But I'm learning a lot as I'm talking through it, so this has been really good. Tomas is going to have sad memories a lot. Yeah. A long time ago, we used to be friends, but I haven't thought of you lately at all. Yeah, what if that's the thing, is, like, you have a different threat where it's like they basically tell you that, like, you're nothing to them anymore. And as a consequence, it's like you feel insignificant too. Contagious social awareness, awkwardness, yeah. 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 They do have the aggressor tag, right? Or whatever they want to call these. We'll find it sometime. Or I will on my own reading, because God knows I'm going at a snail's pace. What page were we on? Let's take a guess. I think we were further than this. No, we weren't. Almost there. Here we go. This is where we were. Good time for me to take a break, though. I'm going to use the restroom and take a break. I'll be right back. Chat amongst yourselves, behave, and all that stuff. And we'll be back to it in a second. And we're back. We are so back. All right. The following guide walks you through everything you need to know and consider when running for the game, whether you are the narrator for a group or yourselves solo or co-op. Adventure session scene. Okay. We're in descending order of nesting there. Okay, got it. In each session, you'll play through one or more scenes of your adventure, however many you can fit in the time you have. Whenever one scene ends, yes. Sequence of scenes is not predefined. Interesting call out. While as the narrator, you may have prepared some scenes with locations and challenges, you never truly know how the story will develop. Okay, yeah. Oh, the sequence. Okay. They mean sequence. Yeah, got it. Okay. Prompting scenes you did not plan. I don't want to plan any scenes. Please don't make me plan scenes. A typical adventure in sessions. Here's an example. Session 1 cutscene. So this is off screen. A farmer is attacked by the wraith in their barn. Next morning, heroes are called. That's an investigation. The clues point to someone from the village. Now we have a tavern brawl. They make public accusations, resulting in a fist fight. Bed rest camping scene. Heroes take a break to recover from the brawl. Number 5, attack. That evening, the wraith attacks one of the heroes in their garden, ending the session with a cliffhanger. Session 2, attack continued. Go through the swamp in search of a local hermit who can help. There's a scene at the hermit's cabin. They have to convince them. They make preparations. Another camping scene. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like normal RPG stuff. Out of scope actions. What is this? If a player wishes to take an action outside the scope of the scene, for example, trying to craft a sword in the middle of a skirmish, or heading out into the wilderness in the middle of a court debate, that action is not resolved within that scene. Such an action can be the subject of its own scene or be considered as something happening off screen between scenes. It's interesting that it doesn't tell you, like, no, you're here in this scene, do your thing. You're basically just giving the players the freedom to step outside of what's actually happening and either progress it off screen or give it its own scene if it's that important. Scenes with no challenges or low stakes. You can also play scenes without a challenge, giving the heroes time to prepare, investigate, debate, and argue. So that's just your non-mechanical role play, if we want to call it that. Zooming in on a vignette. If something interesting happens in a vignette, you can always turn it into a scene and explore that event in greater detail. So there's some categorical language here about what counts as a scene and what does not. If it's telling you to turn something less than a scene into a scene, then there is a line there somewhere that we need to identify what that line is. They mean that you can add more scenes, not that non-sequential flashback scenes are a part of this. Yeah, thank you. I flubbed explaining that. I was like, somebody will get it and put it in chat. Okay, so here we go. What makes a scene? It requires, well, it doesn't say it requires. It says takes place in, which is definitional. A specific time and location with at least one hero present. So if there's no heroes present, it's not a scene. Interesting. It has a certain scope and pace. It could be over in seconds or it could be an hours-long debate. So this is that framing stuff I think that Thaddeus was starting to talk about. Heroes can usually take multiple actions in a scene. Therefore, ergo, if a hero is only afforded maybe one action, then maybe that wasn't big enough to be a scene. How and why does that matter? I don't know yet, but we'll find out. Also, oh, never mind. A scene has scene stakes, because remember, it did tell us to establish these adventure stakes, scene stakes specifically. Something that would be lost or gained, a reason for the heroes to act. Stakes should be connected to the hero's quests or to the short-term goals. We've seen that before. In most scenes, there are challenges. An adversary, hazard, barrier, chase, and so on. Now, challenges, I think, specifically means those that have detailed resolution. So this, to me, is saying in most scenes, you're going to do at least some detailed resolution. And that's fine. Like I continue to say about this game, I think there's a way to run it where you just don't use detailed resolution except for the most important thing. This is suggesting that they'd be more frequent as your default baseline Legend in the Mist, and that's fine. I'm hoping I find that they're just not as hard to run as I'm afraid they might be. We'll find out. A scene ends when the stakes are won, lost, or deferred. Okay, so that's actually interesting. The stakes that you set determine how and when it ends. That's maybe common sense, but I like stuff like this. It's a nice thing to refer back to when you're like, have I lost my way? Am I losing the plot here? Such as when they overcome, when they're defeated, or when the chance to win or lose has passed. Stakes deferred. Scene stakes can also be replaced, continuing the scene in the same time and place, but with different focus. I just find this interesting because there's two ways you could have written this. You could have said, if the scene stakes would be replaced, then it immediately becomes a new scene. Instead, it's saying you can swap out the stakes to prolong the life of it, potentially. So there's two different ways they could have handled that. It's just interesting to see which one they chose. A good scene also has threads that point to the next potential scene, or if it marks the end of an adventure, to the next adventures. That's really cool. Because I'm terrible at this stuff. Well, no, I'm not. I'm not terrible at this at all. I'm apprehensive about doing it well. Anything that involves investigation makes me super nervous because it's just not a muscle I've used very much. And it's easy to get wrong. Other types of scenes, montages. Montage is a collection of short story moments, snippets, or highlights called vignettes. So a vignette goes into a montage, but a vignette down here can turn into a scene itself. So you can basically bloop, pop that out. Which for whatever reason makes me think of magnetic bubbles detaching from our magnetosphere and causing the aurora borealis. Because that's just how my brain works. Very good that they give a way to see the end of a scene. It's always a risk that they drift too long. Yeah. Yeah, it is neat. It gives you something to aim towards as well as you're steering the scene. That's a nice way to put it. Each vignette focuses on one or very few actions. So you still can have actions in vignettes within montages. And it's described in broad strokes without going into detail. All right. Journeys are a specific type of montage. They are montages with a challenge that describe travel through space, landscape, through time, occasion, or through a process undertaking. They are designed to give the players the feeling of a progression and the passage of time. The stakes in a journey are usually not whether it was completed, but at what cost and how the heroes emerge from it. Okay, so completion is assumed. Generally, because then it says, well, maybe it is about whether it's completed or not. A journey is made up of vignette challenges, short challenges that are meant to be resolved with a quick action. The stream didn't die. I'm just processing. Vignette challenges as a subset of normal challenges. A normal challenge has limits and threats and consequences. I wonder if we're going to see an example of what a vignette challenge is, or if they're really just saying, I hope we get an example of that. Because I would imagine it would be a challenge without limits, without threats, and without consequences, but it would still be established in a specific way. And since you're using quick action resolution, you are still going to track against success, mixed success, failure. I really want to see an example of that. See if that's it. It would basically be like looking at that acquaintance one we looked at earlier, but take out the whole bottom half of the page and just have like the setup of it. Interesting. Camping and sojourns are montages that focus on the hero's downtime, the time between scenes or between adventures. These scenes rarely have a challenge. Instead, the stakes are about what the heroes do with their limited time and what they gain from it. Interesting. I could see somebody reading all of this and just being like, this is too overbearing. Like, there's too many like little guidances and things like that. But I don't know. I mean, I think if this structure and this framework ends up delivering the experience that the game has promised, which is rustic fantasy, your individual decisions and moments and conversations with other characters matter, then how you execute those can really inform that. So Pepper says, journey is another term that's a bit misleading when you first hear it, since it's designating a scope of play, not specifically like journeying from one place to another. Yeah, I saw that with a journey could be through an occasion, like an event, like a party, or like a court, gala, ballroom type thing, whatever, where you're trying to get somebody on your side or something. I don't know, or through a process undertaking. Yeah, it's this game feels so fresh and new to me, is I guess the way I would put it. And so we chafe against things that we think we know what they mean based on the word, but I think when you have enough reps under your belt with this game, it just becomes a new language. So we've talked about the backpack. The backpack is not necessarily a physical backpack. It is when it is, but it's not when it's not. And we've had discussions on the Discord about, like, should they have chosen a different name for it? But it's like, well, but they're also trying to, like, inject this, like, vibe into the rules themselves to permeate into the entire experience. Journey is the same situation, like you're saying, Pepper, is like, it's not always a journey. It's a concept for the role it's playing in the story, which is about the feeling of a progression and the passage of time. That is it. This is the definition of what they mean by journey right here. So those things aren't necessarily the journey that you might look up in a dictionary. But again, I think when you play this system, like people have played D&D or they've played Pathfinder for years and years and years and years. I think this is just like a really fresh thing that is going to develop its own sense of language around it. I mean, even Powered by the Apocalypse games and those common phrases that I keep pointing out and the language around those games, those have had how many years at this point now? When did Apocalypse World come out? 2010-ish? Roughly around there. So it's had like 15 years to get its feet under it and to have people conversing about it in online spaces and educating them about the language. So, little hurdle there, but I have faith. I wasn't sure how they worked until I saw that there's an example in the book of a multi-day feast using a journey. Yeah. And that's where the examples are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for this. Logan says, I also think it was like you said in the first stream, London, this could be really pared down because the bones of this are so good. You probably don't need to get this deep in the weeds, but it's cool that it exists, and there are neat aspects that are so interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's like they really gave you everything here. And this is still just the core book. But this feels like it could be an entire supplement of, like, here's how to take your Legend of the Mist game to the next level. They're like, no, we'll give it all to you up front and see what you make with it. Cool. Cutscenes are a narrative tool in which the narrator describes events that are happening away from the heroes and without their immediate knowledge, often to foreshadow coming danger. Heroes cannot take actions in a cutscene unless one of them arrives and it becomes a standard scene. This is they do this in Fabula Ultima as well, but I think you have to spend a Ultima point, not a Fabula point, right? An Ultima point to do a cutscene, or you do a cutscene and you give them a Fabula point. I don't know. So there's like a meta currency interplay there. Here, it's just like, hey, we think this is a good idea for you to narratively, like, give the players context for what they're up against, what they're facing. Give them above the table knowledge that they can use to inform what their character does. And this allows your players to engage with dramatic irony. It allows them to play with the gulf between player knowledge and character knowledge. And if you are a player that struggles with that, this will actually kind of just mess you up. You're like, but I already know that they're doing this, so I'm going to make this meta decision. And maybe that's okay too in a game like this. Maybe it's okay to make meta decisions. Yeah, the weeds are good. They are good weeds. I mean, like I said, there's so much in these books that feels like it's a really good resource for role-playing games, period, point blank. And that's why I think they're an incredible value. I mean, even if you never played this, but if you read through and internalized all of this, I think it would actually enhance GMing across the board. I think a lot of this is that good because they took the time to really drill down and go absolutely nuts with it. Okay, choosing the next scene. We saw this phrase earlier, but I guess we're getting a whole breakdown of it. Oh, here we go. Good. I was confused about these expected and unexpected scenes. Here it is. Narrator chooses the next scene according to the following logic. Expected scenes where the heroes go next. If the heroes go to a nearby location, within a short spell of time, a new scene can start there. Common sense. Feels like. If the heroes travel further afield, play a journey montage or skip the journey and have them arrive at the next scene a while later. Cut to a later time and place. Okay. If the heroes decide to camp or sojourn somewhere, play through that montage. So this, okay, when they say expected scenes, what they're saying is that the scenes logically follow from the decisions that they have made. In this instance, they have decided they are already heading to the nearby location. That informs then the choice of the new scene starting there. If the heroes decide, there's like a big missing, it's not missing, but this big understood in parentheses, decide. The heroes decide and the scene choice flows as you would expect. That's what they mean by expected scenes. The heroes decide to travel further afield. You either do a journey or you skip it entirely. But it's telling you, like, this is a moment to pause and choose whether you're going to do that journey or skip it before you move on to the next logical scene, which is back up here. Or if they decide to camp or sojourn, of course, you do the camping or sojourn scenes. Unexpected scenes. What happens before the heroes arrive at the next expected scene. So this is basically saying, as above, except for it might be interrupted by something else. If someone seeks out or ambushes the heroes, a new scene can start. When and where the heroes first become aware of it. If an important event happens close to the heroes while they are in between scenes and they choose to engage with it, a new scene can start then and there. This, I almost wouldn't call this an unexpected scene, because the order of operations here is they are on the way to the next thing they decided, and so there's an expected scene like in the forefront. And then while that happens, you as the GM or the world responds, and they're like, hey, here's this other interface for you to interact with. If they then decide to go and deal with that, they're still back up here and they're deciding. So this is just kind of saying, like, interruptions that they kind of have some control over. This one they don't necessarily have any control over. This is the world reacting to them, and that's why it is an unexpected scene to the logic of the players. This is just basically saying the world exists outside of you, and it will hit back if it needs to. If you can't think of the next logical scene, ask the conflict oracle. Oh no. Oh, that horse is in trouble. Yeah, I don't think horses and avalanches go together very well. That's not good. What do we got in our sidebars here? Split screen scenes. If the heroes split up and are doing different things in different places, right, yeah, you just go between them. Winding down. Yeah, we had advice earlier about how to end a scene. So this is that again. Cool. The Mythic GM emulator calls them interrupted scenes, which I think is clear. Yeah, I think that is clear. But here, yeah, I could see where they had the challenge, because they're not talking about a scene itself that's interrupted. They're talking about it coming up in the space in between scenes. But, you know, we get it. We get it. All right, an hour and a half for 20 pages. Right on time. The game loop, narrating a scene. Every scene in the game is played using the game loop. We know that. Establish or reestablish action consequences. The EAC. Yeah, you know me. You present the scene describing where the heroes are, what the stakes are, what the challenges are, what threats are posed. You then ask, what do you do? Okay, let's take a brief beat right here, because I don't know if this was made clear before, and I might have missed it myself. When you establish, you are supposed to tell them the stakes, or get group consensus on the stakes, or get them to agree on what the stakes are, because the stakes are your bounding box for when the scene is going to end. You're saying this scene is asking a question. The stakes are asking, the stakes are the question to be answered, and the scene will provide the answer to that question. But explicitly, you are supposed to tell the group what the stakes are. And that is like a meta writer's room kind of above the table thing. And you're saying, this is where we need to be heading towards to resolve this thing. So that is interesting. And I did want to call that out. They are definitely talking about the same thing, but, you know, I'm an endless pedant, so that's what you get. Okay. You say, what do you do, and give one hero the spotlight so everyone is now listening to them. That's also interesting. You could throw it to the whole group, but this is not saying that. Interesting. You know, this is another play-by-post tool that I would use when I had groups that were of differing levels of activity. I would actually decide when and where to throw the spotlight based off of who was showing up as online on Discord at that particular moment in time. And if it was the person that was always online, that wouldn't necessarily sway my hand towards them. But if I saw that somebody who was less often online was online, I'd be like, boom, go into them every single time, because they're here now, they're captured, and this other person is going to be here the whole time. So I can get to them later. But that is a PvP trick that I would use to keep things moving. When you have the less active players and you see them available, hit them. Hit them to start with, hit them hard, hit them first. Get them invested and involved, because they've got their busy life to get back to. So we will see me do that in our games. When a hero is in the spotlight, they describe what they do. We choose what kind of resolution. Great. We know that. We deliver the consequences. We looked at those. You may add effects. That's the tags and statuses where I was saying it's essentially telling you have loosely 1 to 2 power to spend whenever you want. You may also allow them or any hero to lessen these effects by making a reaction roll. Yeah. All right. Establishing a scene in detail. Follow these steps. Paint a picture of the current situation in the fiction. Create story tags as needed. Pepper, I know you were talking about that before. I called that out earlier. That the system encourages and forces you to develop that skill of like thinking, what are the most important things here? What are the buttons that are here that the players can press on? Highlight the stakes to keep the players focused. Very good. Introduce challenges, make threats. Optionally present a dilemma. And give the spotlight. When you first establish a scene, you describe it in greater detail. You reestablish after every hero action. While many things are likely to remain the same, use this to consider if anything new is happening. And here's some helpful questions towards that. How did the environment respond? Have the stakes shifted? Should new challenges appear? What are the next threats? Okay. I'm really excited and looking forward to just internalizing this stuff. So like if I got to the point where I could tell you what these questions are off the top of my head, that'll be the level I want to reach, where I just know this, and then I can just whip it out on the spot. Expire short-lived tags. Good time to expire any story tags or statuses from previous terms whose time has passed. This is the Magic the Gathering upkeep phase. That's what this is. So that's actually a neat way to think of it. Cultivate your narrator skills step by step. This guide takes a deep dive into many of the considerations. Yes, it does. But you don't have to master them all at once. Initially, you only need to be familiar with the game loop. This is that collapsing gracefully thing. That's really all you need. Then pick one thing to try in each session you run, like richer descriptions and establish or delivering consequences for weakness tags. I really appreciate that they put this in here, because we've talked about the fire hose that this game is, and this is really just kind of like gentle and thoughtful for the game developers to write this. It shows a lot of care. Like I can feel the care in that sidebar. That's cool. Painting a picture, just as when telling a fireside tale, your words, tone, body language, and even silences are all channels through which the players learn about the world of their heroes. Yeah. Describe time and place. Great prompting questions for all these things that I'm not good at doing intuitively. And again, these are broad GM skills that will serve you everywhere. Where is light coming from? What a beautiful question to ask. What sounds can be heard? What smells are prominent? Show the time of day not only by the sun's position, but also with who or what is around and what activities they are taking, as well as hear sensations like hunger and tiredness. That's awesome. I'm surprised. I'm surprised to hear that. I won't make it into Magic the Gathering, don't worry. Trinkets and knickknacks. Try to describe some of the day-to-day items in the scene. This is helpful for setting tone, definitely with Hearts of Ravensdale. That's cool. This is all just good advice. You don't have to be a poet. Storytelling is a key skill of any narrator, but you don't need to be a professional writer who knows all the fantasy words. An atmosphere can be built in many ways. Lean into your strengths. If you improvise well, ask the players for suggestions and build on their answers. If you're good with voices, use them. Okay, so it says you don't have to be a poet, but it helps. You can take more than just inspiration from the greats. You can take their words, read books and poems appropriate to the genre you're playing, and write down their word choices and styles of phrase. Use them in your descriptions to evoke the mood you're going for. This is so cool. You don't need to do any of this. And now we're at this section of the book where they're just like, hey, listen, if you want to be truly great at this, like, here are some things to do. Not only just like read things in the genre, but also actively write down word choice, phrasing, pacing, things like that. I also really appreciate here where it's like lean into your strengths. I've been reacquainted in the last 24 hours with my GM strength, which is frankly like the thing I'm best at is running NPCs. That's my bread and butter. I'm not great at running combats or encounters or any of that stuff. I am excellent at running NPCs. And that's not even something I'll be remotely humble about. I'm fucking great at it. When I'm in the headspace to do it, we just had this Fallout scene from our E12 event where this time attack came in and not hundreds, but at least 100 people died in town. And it's this falling action of just all these characters processing this horror and everything that's going on. And I'm out there killing it with these NPCs. I just am. It's not even my event. I'm just like, oh, I'll have this character pop in here. If the heroes are facing a furious troll, describe its raging roar and rippling muscles. If they're at the court of a chieftain, describe her suspicious glare and the whispers of the gathered courtesans and shaman. If they're at a peaceful pond, describe the frogs, fish, and bird life sending ripples across the water. So this is the stuff that I'm actually good at. The reactions of characters, their body language, I tend to be better at. Those, I think it's probably an implicit bias of that's what I want. That's what I need in order to bounce off of those things. And so I'm good at providing what I also want. I think that's what draws me towards that personally. Describe the atmosphere. Give players cues for the mood and feeling of the scene. Ask them how their heroes feel. Is it a tense moment or an amusing one in awkward silence? Is something terribly sad happen here? Or is there an air of industriousness? Perhaps the actions of the heroes change the mood. This, I would say I'm not as good at. Describe the atmosphere. I think I try and describe the atmosphere through show don't tell with how, again, for me, NPCs are reacting to those things, and the weight of the moment. And like I just was describing Skylay, a character who's like holding onto this other character who like almost died, and another character was approaching, and so I had her look up, and I just said with like a dry and raspy voice, all she says is just help. She says, pleading, and like tried to capture that like her voice is gone from like crying, sobbing, screaming, freaking out, and like just that extra detail that like that I don't know, that like there's something to chew on there, and that's how I tend to do atmospheres through characters. But I don't know that I'm any good at this. So, is what it is. Provide enough details. You can use the player's suggestions and questions to add wonder, color, and dread, but you must give them something to work with. Describing a person with a cart gives little reason to engage, but encountering a tired merchant dragging a heavy cart with peculiar wares provides the players with the opportunity to ask about the wares, be curious, or be suspicious. Also, I'm not great at this. I honestly, as a GM, I'm like, there's a guy with a cart. He's selling some wares. He comes through town every other week, so you're probably familiar with him. He has on there the things you probably expect. Like, you can fill in those details for me if you need to or want to, or if you want to interact with him, you're going to indicate by how you respond to that. I tend to assume if you want to know what's on the cart, you're going to ask me. And then because you've asked, you're shining the flashlight on it. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I'll tell you he's got dried herbs tied up in bundles up there, and he's got some dried salted meats. He also has like jewelry that he's collected from other areas, other towns in the Dales, and probably like some like tools, like some hammers and some like tongs and maybe some gardening tools like spades and things like that. But I don't tend to front load my effort with that. Not that this is over the top either, but I don't tend to front load that because I don't know if the players even care. And maybe, again, this is about providing atmosphere, so like there's probably value to doing it anyway, but I just don't fixate on details even as a player. And if I want a detail, I create it for myself, and then I bounce off of it. So that's, I would call this not a weakness, but an opportunity for growth. Yeah, and I guess that also goes to like some GMs being afraid or having the experience of like, I gave them a detail about this tavern and now they're obsessed with it, and we spent the whole session like fixated on it, and they wouldn't get off the fact that like I was like, he's just a normal guy in a cloak. I'm sorry that I used the word cloak and it made you think he was so suspicious and had to be investigated. Like, I wish I had never said cloak. So I think there's like, an apprehension in some GMs of giving too much erroneous detail. But Legend in the Mist is a game about fleshing out the details. And I guess if you continue to show details that are not found to be like game-breaking, must-know this thing, then maybe over time they will kind of loosen up around that kind of thing. Evoke the senses. Yeah, this was mentioned earlier. Again, not something I'm great at for the same reasons I described before. Mentioning the jingling of tiny brass bells. I mean, I wish I was better at this stuff. I wish I cared. I don't know. It's like I fill in the details for myself. And I assume other players are doing that as well. And it might be that their visual image, or their mental image is different than my mental image. And that might never collide and never be a problem. But I still am living in the space that I'm creating. And I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. See ya, Pepper. Thanks for hanging out. Oh no, the distracting detail. Yeah. This is good advice, though. What if it's a magic cloak? Well, you'll never know until you investigate it. So now we need to come up with a way to like distract him and steal the cloak from the back of his chair. And somebody take it into the back, and we're going to run Identify Magic on it, okay? That's the plan. Somebody's going to cause a distraction. We're going to light a fire in the kitchen. This is good, though. Use metaphors. The ogre's blood is as thick... Excuse me, sorry. The ogre's blood is as thick as sap. This is a setting-relevant detail, right? Like, sap implies forests and trees and builds into what the metaphors that the actual characters would be using. So that's neat. Hardening on its skin instead of dripping. That's kind of gross. On occasion, add a touch of sixth sense, gut feelings, hunches, unexplained premonitions, or foretellings, or second sight. I do this, actually. I don't have a challenge doing that. I'll just be like, you feel extremely uneasy and you're not exactly sure why. You can try and look around and figure out what it is, but like you feel really uneasy. And that almost crosses a line that you have to be very careful with of telling players how they feel is something that must be done very delicately. And I only do it when I'm just like, no, really, like there's something fucking going on right now and it's affecting you. Not just like I'm deciding how your personality or your emotion is, but like if there's some real shit happening, I will tell you then. Kwana added basically Bob the Human as the person who's running our magic shop in Kingmaker, and I am convinced that he is some sort of god. No comment. I don't know anything. Even the densest hero can sometimes feel a dark presence nearby. Yeah. Keep it a mystery by not naming it. This is so core to this game, and I will see how I feel about it in practice. I understand the idea behind it, and we'll see. Like, it could be really exciting when done well. This actually happened. I kind of forgot all about this. I ran a Pathfinder game that I completely forgot about way back in the day for a group of friends that was based on a novel that a friend of mine and I were going to write. And in this whole first session, like, I had the heroes encounter these things that were outside the walls of the town, and like the guy was an archer, so he like shot at one, and like I think he hit it, but they got away or something. So he came back into town, and the scene they were trying to describe what they had seen and faced, and the player was just like, yeah, I don't know what they were. They were just all out. These lurks, they were just out there, and I shot at one of them, and they ran away. And I was like, cool, that's what they're called now. I was like, that's the first time anybody's given them a name in the setting, and now everybody is going to call them lurks because you just did. It was really cool. And that's what this is. When you describe a phenomenon unfamiliar to the heroes, it's easy to revert to tropes that everyone knows. For example, it's basically a zombie. While this sort of familiar language could be great for a purely tactical game, it really does little to create the atmosphere of a fantasy story. The player's sense of wonder and mystery can be enhanced by never naming strange phenomena. The heroes don't know what they are facing, and so to increase the immersion of the players, avoid calling it by a specific name. You can describe the zombie as this dead ancient sentry or a dripping, groaning bog corpse. I love that they mentioned a sixth sense. It's a great opportunity for someone playing a more intuitive character. Yeah. I also love making strange that which is familiar, anthropological term. Yeah. And we actually saw that too in Defy the Gods, that little blurb where it was like, hey, like approach this open-minded and resist the urge to tropify everything. So I think that's powerful if you can do it right. I presume it's going to be hard to resist the urge to be like, it's basically a zombie. Because you do want to communicate, and this is resonance. Derek always talks about resonance. That you can communicate a lot when you pull on the threads of the zeitgeist and tropes that everybody's familiar with. You can say a lot by saying little. This game is saying, like, don't rush to say a lot by saying little. Say a lot and let that be lived and breathed in. So it is kind of pushing back against that instinct to, like, give these touch points, right? Cool. Don't be tempted to use worn-out definitions even when the players take action and reveal what something really is. Continue to describe it with detail and flavor while always circling around an actual name. God, I feel like this is going to be a challenge, but I'm up for it. It's a remarkably preserved body, which seems to have been in water for a very long time. What gives it the power to move, you do not know, but surely it is something foul and powerful, more than you've ever seen before, and you've seen a lot. Okay. Now we're getting into the crunch. Let me just kind of skim ahead here to see what we're kind of facing up to here. And I should probably take a check at the bookmarks and see where we're at. Okay, I'm thinking I will probably target wrapping up this subsection of the chapter today. I think that's going to be my target. I'm setting the stakes of the stream so we know when the stream ends. Very cool. Avoiding tropes also helps keep players from being primed in the wrong way. Yeah. Bob is just a dude. Many say so. Many say so. We don't know about Bob's cat dog. We don't know. Is Bob even Bob? Creating story tags. If something you establish seems likely to have an effect on the scene, that's important phrasing. So you're not creating tags that aren't going to get used, basically. The things are still there, and if the player has a great idea, then you could be like, yeah, let's make that a story tag. But they're trying to say, like, don't kill yourself trying to create these. And somewhere else it said create a max of 3 story tags. I wonder if we're going to see that as a harder limit here. But basically, if you're going beyond 3, you're probably doing more work than you need to. As the narrator, you can always add story tags and statuses to the scene, but the best time to do so is during the established phase. Yeah. You can use the story tag column of the conflict oracle to help you come up with tags for your scene. Let's make sure we do... I'm going to forget this, so I'm going to write it down. I don't trust myself. Let's make sure we look at the oracle, too, before the stream wraps. All cats are eldritch beings of unfathomable power. Okay, we're going to continue in just a second. I need to take another quick break to deal with something here, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So, where were we? You can use the story tag column of the conflict oracle, right? I wrote that down. We're going to try and look at that. Story tags can highlight the weather, terrain, ambiance, hazards, objects, environmental factors, and even individuals and groups in the scene. Statuses can represent the transient but impactful conditions in the scene, such as Foggy 3 or Warded Against Demons 3. Transient but impactful. Important. A negative tag would make certain actions harder for the heroes, while a positive one will make certain actions easier. Yeah? Some tags can be both, such as gale winds that affect both hero and enemy archers. When adding tags, remember, adding a story tag to the scene is like saying to the players, this is important, or this has the potential to have an impact on our story. Yup. Very good. A scene doesn't need more than a few tags, if any. Heroes and challenges already have their own tags and ways to add more, so only add a tag if you want the heroes to interact with it. Yeah. This is like putting, the pot of burning oil on top of the castle wall in a traditional game, where you're like, this is here for you to use. It could potentially be very, very relevant if people are trying to scale the walls or something like that. Same kind of thing here. There's a siege encounter going on, and you say, these are the siege weapons, and here are the rules for how to fire it. That's like the equivalent of saying, like, put a siege engine story tag in there if you want heroes to run up to the wall and fire it. It's the same idea. Tags only influence hero actions and reactions. They don't actively harm the heroes. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. They've never been said to do that. If you want an element in the scene that actively delivers consequences, make it a challenge, then give it the tags you planned on adding, because then they have autonomy on whether or not they address the threats or challenges. Makes sense. If you want a hazard that could seriously harm a character, like an abyss or a river of lava, it's enough to describe it as such. It does not need a tag. Unless you are telling the players you want them to interact with it. Makes sense. Highlighting the stakes. Keep the heroes focused on what matters in the scene. Say it clearly. So there's no subtext here. Once the players decide on a course of action, tell them what must be done to achieve this to the best of their hero's knowledge. It should be an action that is available here and now, one step in a long line of steps to achieve the ultimate goal of the series. When establishing, repeat the stakes so everyone knows what the scene is about, why you're playing it. Interesting. Cool. Interesting, cool, and fun. Tie the stakes to the hero's quests or short-term goals. This is now, I think, the third or fourth time the book has said this. So please, for the love of God, please do it. Perhaps a hero needs to drive off a monster in order to protect their tribe, which is their devotion quest, or in order to make some money to buy passage on the ferry from South Crossing. If they lose track of why they're here, remind them. Okay, this just clicked for me. It probably should have clicked sooner. But this is how you low prep this game. You don't need to prep an arc or a story or anything like that. You could just be like, well, I've got 4 players, and they each have 4 quests. So that's 16 story threads to draw on. They have a fellowship quest as well. That's number 17. Which one am I feeling like exploring today? And you just pick one, and then you create a scene that addresses that quest. Beautiful, beautiful way to low prep this thing. Oh, that's good. Notice when the stakes shift if the original goal is subverted. For example, an interrogation is interrupted when the room is suddenly flooded. The scene stakes are replaced with a new set of stakes, so reestablish them. Good point. Lots of scene tag examples. You guys know me, I don't read examples, even though I should. Someday I'll be better. Introducing challenges. A challenge is anything that puts the heroes or their goals in danger. Okay. Once they become aware something or someone in the scene jeopardizes them and their goals, describe it clearly to the players and explain how so. For example, a guard should be said to be in the way or watching you, and not just exist in the scene somewhere. Beautiful. Make things actively doing stuff. Because that'd be easy to just be like, there's a guard there. And then like, well, is the guard looking at us? What is the guard doing? And then the players are going to ask that anyway. And then you're going to have to answer, and then they're going to, So just say it up front, what's actively happening. Crossing a bridge over a chasm is not in itself a challenge unless you also stress it is rickety, or the darkness of the chasm might hide something dangerous, or if they're being shot at by people. This often goes hand in hand with making threats, which is saying what the thing happening in this moment. What is the thing happening in this moment that makes the challenge dangerous? Right on. When you play a published adventure or a scene that you've prepared in advance, each scene will already list the potential challenges in it. When you improvise a scene, you can choose a challenge using the conflict oracle and generate its profile by picking an appropriate challenge profile from the pre-made profile oracle. Oh, God. Or by creating a challenge on the fly. We're not going to do any of that today. We will look at the Oracle, but we won't be going into challenge creation because I don't need to, because I'm going to run a published adventure. I'm just going to learn by doing. What kind of scene do I want this to be? Challenges define the nature of a scene. Yeah. Consider the list of challenge roles. We are going to go to this in just a second. Choose a challenge that matches the mood and the moment based on your narrative considerations. If the heroes just fought off several beastkin and don't seem interested in more fighting, maybe the beastkin around the corner should be a negotiation or temptation challenge. How does it tie into our story? How difficult do I want the challenge to be? These are all very good questions to think about. And then adjusting the difficulty, which we saw a summary of, but it looks like there's going to be a whole page dedicated to it, so that's awesome. How much attention do I want this to occupy? Should it be resolved in short form or long form? Okay, this is all really good stuff, but I am feeling the mental strain, and I don't have the mental strength to do all of that in my brain right now. So that's going to be my own study time. We've got might here, which we're not going to touch. Making threats is important. Where else do we want to go? I want to go back to that, I think it's at page 110. Perfect. Okay, this is what we were talking about earlier. You remember that unavoidable acquaintance or whatever? It had the aggressor role. These are called challenge roles, so that's the language we needed. It had aggressor and what else? Watcher. So I actually want to look through all of these real quick. Challenge roles are general categories that describe a challenge's place and behavior in the story to help guide you on how and when to use it. So this is great. Challenge profiles have their roles listed, but any challenge can be assigned a role. Roles carry no mechanical significance. An aggressor is someone who wants to hurt the heroes physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, etc. So aggressor wants to hurt the heroes. A charge, someone or something that the heroes must defend from other forces. A countdown, something that will happen in a few moments or that advances toward a crescendo like a wooden bridge, burning down, or an ongoing ritual. Cool. This is like making a clock into a entire challenge and giving it all the robust like things to push and pull on without just kind of like freewheeling it like you might with a clock. Influence, someone or something that tries to get the heroes to act in a certain way. Mystery, something the heroes want to find out but is not evident and may even be hidden from them. Obstacle, barrier or hazard in the path of the heroes. Pursuer, someone who's chasing the heroes down. Quarry, someone or something the heroes need but is getting away. So these are opposites. That's good. Sapper, someone who undermines or weakens the heroes without necessarily trying to defeat them. I kept seeing this word and I was like, what does that mean in the context of the game? Support, someone who empowers or restores other challenges. Yeah, interesting. I could see how that could become almost semi-tactical in like a Fabula Ultima kind of way, almost. If you have multiple challenges on the field and one is like healing, and I mean that in as loose of a way as you could possibly mean it, reducing their limits back down, that kind of thing. And a watcher, someone or something that is patrolling, looking for the heroes, watching the heroes, or trying to assess their true intentions. So these are neat. These are really neat categories, so that when you see those challenge profiles, that's the language we need to use, you can see at a glance what the role that they're mechanically going to play for you is. So I like that. I like it. I don't remember what page we were on. Nailed it. Except for I didn't want to be that far yet. Oh, now I've done it. Why do I always do this to myself? Okay, we were on introducing challenges. Let me check again what our progress is looking like. This is introducing challenges. Okay. We're going a lot slower than even I thought. What else do we have here? Stakes for heroes of mixed might levels. Let's read this. This might be interesting. If the heroes of your fellowship have significantly varying might levels, a simple shoemaker next to a god of the sea, keep in mind they may have different individual stakes. That's good to point out. The god seeks to defeat an invading army while the shoemaker tries to reconnect with their son. Give the same attention to both. Perhaps the NPCs in the world care more about the invasion, but your players care more about the stakes they themselves set. Yeah, I mean, this is also kind of in a way talking about, you know, the Fellowship of the Ring is running through Khazad-dûm, and then Gandalf goes 1v1 on a Balrog, right? While their goal is just to get the fuck out of there. His goal is to hold back this fucking, like, demon of shadow and flame. So you're addressing both. Unseen dangers. Remember that you normally only describe to the players what their heroes can perceive. If you know a challenge is present at the scene but none of the heroes are aware of it, then it has not yet been introduced into the scene and you should not describe it. Okay, I gotta process that. Okay, that's a lot simpler than I thought. They're saying don't introduce it until they actually can perceive or interact with it. That makes sense. You can describe instead any signs or gut feelings that can prompt the heroes to look for the challenge. Cool. Depending on your narrative considerations. Describe the challenge in full only when you introduce it. Traps and invisible enemies are classic examples of challenges that may be present in a scene, but of which the heroes may not be aware until it is too late. And there's a whole section on traps, ambushes, and betrayals. Nebulous threats. I'm not a big trap guy. Wonder if there'll be any traps in our published adventure. We will see. Okay, I know we want to get to the Oracle. We've asked these questions, and we know this is going to have a lot of really good stuff. Let's do this examples page in lieu of that. Facing a monster, short form, simple or quick. The hero faces the creature, raising their sword, and gives a short description of the attack, and we cut to the aftermath. A success means the hero has won. Consequences mean they sustained a grave wound. Yeah. I mean, you just cut right through the action there. Long form, an involved battle scene where every sword stroke, every parry, and every monstrous ability receive their own dramatic beat. The scene ends only when one side fatally wounds the other or flees and outruns its pursuer. Yeah. So that's a great example of the two different short and long. Traversing dark woods. Short form, hero is described marching through the woods, facing perils, cold and weariness without much detail. A success means they reached their destination. Consequences mean the journey left its mark on them. Long form, a journey montage where in each vignette the hero is seen overcoming a specific danger lurking in the dark woods. And again, a vignette is basically a single check. So this is kind of like a skill challenge, but each skill is like its own narrative beat. Each such moment leaves its mark on the hero, and the hero may be forced to change their plans or find a place to camp. The journey ends only when the hero traverses all the vignettes. I don't remember. Right, okay, they were called vignette challenges, and we were going to look to see if they gave us an example of those, and we haven't seen it yet, but vignette challenges, my implication for that is that it's a challenge that basically describes itself, but it doesn't have limits, it doesn't have threats, it doesn't establish consequences. And so even though this short form example says simple or quick, this long form journey is actually, to me, a stitched together series of quick with maybe some detailed mixed in. But the vignettes trend more towards simple and quick themselves. You just have a lot of them. So that's what makes it long. Not that up here, the long form of this battle is a detailed. Here, the long form is just a bunch of these little ones. That's the difference. But this page is about short and long form challenges, not quick and simple versus detailed. So that is a difference. Recruiting an old sellsword, short form. We describe the hero conversing with the sellsword as if from afar without hearing what they say. Success means the sellsword agrees to join the companions. Consequences mean they refused or demanded an outrageous price. Long form detailed. We follow the hero's exchange with the sellsword word for word. One thing the hero says has the sellsword listening, but then they hear what the job is and change their mind. There's tension and frustration in the air. The conversation ends only when the hero has convinced the sellsword or the sellsword has heard enough. So those are the two limits. These limits This is something I needed to internalize too, so this example is great. The limits are not your only indicators of success. The limits tell you when the challenge ends or resolves. But this limit, convinced, resolves in the favor of the player. This limit, heard enough, resolves not in the favor of the player. But both limits may be incremented based on what's happening. So the limit is not, here's how you win. The limit is, this is how this changes. And that is, I think, a really important distinction that will be helpful to me. Breaking a curse. Short form, the hero is described waving their hands, chanting incantations, and burning dried herbs over a deformed, cursed person over the course of a night. A success means the curse is lifted. Consequences mean the ritual took a heavy toll. Long form, detailed. The hero contends with the curse through an entire scene. The curse seeks to infect the hero's body and soul. The hero pushes it back, then tries to maintain a sacred space, but it costs a part of their mind. This continues play by play until at dawn the curse is either lifted or the hero becomes exhausted or even cursed themselves. Again, the limits here, not always in the player's favor. They just dictate when that challenge ends. And depending on the stakes of the scene, ending that challenge might also end the scene. So that's cool. This immediately makes me think of Wheel of Time again, as most things do, because it's something I read recently about Moraine pulling a curse off of an individual. I guess I won't spoil it, even though it's been out for 30 years at this point. Cool. Let's actually, this might be a nice quick overview of might. I liked how Pepper was saying that she used might the other night as basically just being like a stop. Like you need to try something else because your might doesn't match. So challenges can be mighty in different aspects. Physically, size of numbers, socially, and influence, magically with power, and so on. When you choose a challenge to feature in your scene, consider its mighty aspects in relation to the mighty aspects of the heroes. So here's our matrix. We have an oh no. None of the heroes are as mighty in this aspect as the challenge. The heroes will have to use their resourcefulness or make significant sacrifices to gain the upper hand in the scene. Green check mark, I guess. This is tense and therefore fun, but consider if the heroes can survive it and at what cost. Now, when it's talking about significant sacrifices, basically, if they're imperiled, they're going to be doing everything at a -3 on top of any negative statuses. So to offset that, you're probably going to start burning through tags, and then you're limiting what you can do in future iterations and turns, or there might be other narrative sacrifices they have to make. So this would be a very hard thing to overcome. A fair match. Only some of the heroes are as mighty in this aspect as the challenge. The mighty hero usually takes point in the scene while the others support them. Avoid giving the same hero the limelight in this way more often than the others by diversifying the roles and mighty aspects of your challenges. Yeah. So if you have somebody who's just better than everybody else, don't make all your challenges highlight the dude who's better than everybody at everything else. Power display. Some of the heroes are mightier than the challenge in this aspect. This scene is a chance for the mighty hero to show off their power. Avoid too many of these scenes as they become boring quickly because the result is all but determined. But it's good on occasion to let the heroes play out their mighty aspects. We finished reading this, but then we'll come back to that. A scene where all the heroes are mightier than the challenge is rarely worth playing through unless the challenge has a way to use the hero's might against them, flipping the balance of power. So might does cut both ways. And the example they gave in the dev time was like Bilbo being the small hobbit in the enormous treasure hoard of Smaug. Bilbo was able to like sneak around and escape. And so his low might was actually able to help him be advantaged against Smaug trying to kill him. And he had a magic ring, but this comes up a lot. And going back to the chart, don't make me tap the chart. But some players are just like, well, if I just have low or trivial encounters in Pathfinder, for example, it's not even worth the time. And it's like, probably not, but every now and then maybe. And also, if you're running a game where you're encouraging people to take the less impactful and flavorful options and you've communicated up front, hey, we're running this at a lower average difficulty, take some time to just have fun and do some wild shit. So this game probably makes these low-level challenges a little more interesting because you're at all times playing it for the truth of the narrative and the story. It just might be that it does get boring over time because, again, the result is kind of already known. So why aren't we just doing a quick resolution instead of a detailed, basically is what it comes down to. All hands on deck. Every hero has a challenge at their might level and aspect. During the scene, each hero has a clear challenge to face. This is the ideal scene, which engages all heroes, but it can be hard to set up. I don't know why that would be hard to set up. Oh, I see. each hero has a challenge at their might level and aspect. Not that they all have the same might level, but that you map 1-to-1. I mean, this is like splitting an entire battlefield into 4 time shards and having different levels face everything at the same time. Yeah. To set up an all-hands-on-deck scene for Fellowship with mixed might levels, use challenges of different might levels, a formidable monster and its minions. Use challenges with different mighty aspects. For example, the warrior is battling a knight while the bard presses the queen to confess. Use a single challenge at different scales. For example, the exorcist is contending with a whole swarm of terror spirits while the other companions wrestle with individual ones. That's cool. That's a cool idea. I like it. A challenge's mighty aspects are listed in his challenge profile with the adventure or greatness icon. If you're making a challenge on the fly, think of whether there is a field in which it is mighty. Huh, that's cool. So we didn't see that in like our uncomfortable NPC challenge, but that makes sense. All right, onward. Making threats. This is going to be great detail. Again, I'm going to self-study on this. But the mental RAM is running out. Traps, ambushes, and betrayals. We saw that this was going to be coming up. Presenting dilemmas, giving the spotlight. Let's read this quick. The established phase ends when you ask the heroes as a group or as a specific hero, what do you do? This signals the hero to consider the stakes, the challenges, the threats made, and the dilemmas, and choose their next action. Yeah. I kind of disagree with this sidebar. I do agree with this one, though. We're going to read that. 1 second. Check and mate. Making threats resembles saying checkmate in chess. Making a threat is calling check, and if the hero does not act to prevent, avoid, or address the threat, you deliver the consequences, the mate, with the exception that consequences do not usually end the game. Another metaphor can be load and fire. Making a threat is like loading up a consequence, and if it's not averted, it's then launched at the heroes. That's great insight. This one, though, player-driven character development. Generally, it's the role of each player to find the moments when their hero's quests are challenged. It is recommended for the narrator to try to present 1 dilemma per session at most and leave the rest to the players. I kind of really disagree with that. Sure, I guess the rules are saying like, hey, that's not your job, GM. You're doing enough as it is, and that's potentially true. But that's trusting the players. And yeah, the players are advantaged by identifying when their quests are coming up because that's how they advance. They mark milestone so that they can evolve their themes or spend on other stuff. But I think you're going to have a much better game if, as the GM, you're actively trying to present scenarios where they can interact with that. But maybe the way I'm describing it makes for too much advancement too quickly. So I don't know. I guess we'll see the pacing when I've actually run it. Interesting. Resolving the actions. This is going to be really important for me to study as well. Delivering consequences. Yeah. Unfortunately, my brain is just done. I like this art piece. I like this a lot. She looks very happy. Unbelievable how much detail this all goes into. Let's read this real quick. Reactions. Whenever you deliver a consequence that includes effects, whether it is the hero's turn or not, you can choose to allow the hero to react and lessen the consequences. Ask yourself this: can the hero defend themselves from this? If so, allow them a reaction. Supporting a hero's reaction role is similar to arriving at a detailed outcome. Page 32, which we skipped. A reaction should not be used to prevent narrative consequences in the same way consequences cannot undo a success. True. To avoid an unwanted situation, the hero must respond to it when a threat is first made. So they can kind of defend themselves from like the mechanical things that get layered on them, tags and statuses. But they can't keep the actual narrative effect from happening. So that kind of tracks. They basically stop the debuff, but they don't stop the fiction from advancing. Makes sense? Wrapping up a scene. Oh my lord. This is loot, apparently. Good God. Again, with the examples. A lot of ideas to pull from here. If you're not sure what to do, there it is. Remarkable treasures. Now we're talking about entire story themes, which I don't think we've talked about on stream yet. But you can have story tags that go in your backpack. But I think it's said somewhere that you can have entire story themes, where this doesn't necessarily replace an entire theme card, but it is there available to you as like an additional one, or maybe it's meant to replace. Does it say? It probably says. Sometimes the heroes will come upon a truly special object, beast, or grace, which you can represent as a story theme. There it is. So that is a new thing. Story. It's not a story tag. It's a story theme. Story themes still have to be maintained at camp if a hero would like to hold on to them, or they can be turned into a hero theme next time a hero replaces one of their themes. Okay. So you basically, like, if you want to keep it active through play, you need to sacrifice other actions you might otherwise take during a camping scene to keep it like recharged and usable. As you use the tags, they will get scratched, I believe. So they are still like one use and have to be recharged every time. If you want to integrate them into your character, you need to find a way to actually fully replace a theme with one of them. And those things might be the Staff of the Harbinger, Rings of Engagement, Telepathy with My True Love, Love's Bond, Downside Here Too Much, Armor of Sir Edric, Flawlessly Made, Light and Flexible, Negative Draws Attention. So there's some cool stuff here. Book of True Names, that's awesome. Adjusting the difficulty. So we did see these examples all before. This is going to go into more detail. I'm pushing. I'm going to get to the end of this chapter. Pushing for it. Companions. So this is going to be kind of like the same treasures. Another way to make things easier for the heroes is to equip them with additional tags. This is especially true when there are very few heroes in the fellowship, such as when playing solo or with another person, duo. A narratively interesting way to add more tags to a hero is to give them a companion story theme. So again, story theme. That's exactly the same as we just saw with those Wondrous Treasures or whatever they're called. They can always choose to adopt it as one of the hero's themes later. This story theme represents a helpful ally that accompanies the hero and assists them in their actions. It's often handy to have a companion that complements the hero's ability set by covering areas in which the hero is not specialized. And a companion theme has the added value of having another character in every scene with which the hero can converse and share thoughts. Right on, Logan. Getting ready for your game. Trained Falcon. That'd be fun. That'd be really fun. Somebody in our game has got their like loyal wolfhound. I wonder if this is where they got it from. No, I don't see it here. It must have been somewhere else in the book. Okay, that's hilarious. Cat-shaped familiar. It's not actually a cat. It's cat-shaped. There's something else going on there. That's awesome. There's your trained falcon right there. I think she was one of the pre-gens. The wise one, I think. When they did the pre-gens, they did this really cool thing where they made them in 3 different like ages. So there's the red marshal, the apple picker, the wise one, I think were the 3. Maybe there was a 4th. But they made the pre-gen sheets where one of them was like this older woman, there's this middle-aged woman, and then there was like a younger girl. Or maybe she was the younger one, I don't recall. But the art for all of them was really cool. And we did it. We got to the end of the chapter by skipping half of it, just like we always do. Let's look at this, though. Look at this journey. That's so cool. It's very cool. And like this little motif here at the top, this is like a guiding star with all the like little points of light coming off. Is that showing up on stream? Kind of looks a little muted. But there's all these little dotted lines, these rays of light coming off of it. Maybe it's meant to be the sun. I don't know. It's cool either way. Look at this book down here. Fun stuff. So, I have learned more, and that was the goal. This stream, like I said, was for me. This was not for you guys. If you got anything out of it, good for you. I'm happy. I am trying to add value. I am. But I need to learn this game better and quicker and faster, and I think I got a lot out of it. I'll probably have to listen back to this stream to even remember what I learned or taught myself. But yeah, it was good. But we're heading into the afternoon. Got to get on with our days here. hopefully I'm not sick. I keep saying that. Hopefully I'm not sick on Wednesday night when I stream. Wednesday night, I think I mentioned this in the stream, but I might tackle the violence in RPGs topic, which is going to be big. And if I can do it right, if I think of enough angles to talk about that topic, I think it's going to be a really, really impactful stream. I'm kind of in a sort of a series that I didn't realize I was creating. We did the relationships and romance in RPGs, then we did Lone Wolves and Wanderers in RPGs, and now I want to talk about violence in RPGs, and kind of like from the angle of everything that doesn't get talked about. Again, like I say, sometimes I struggle in RPGs because I don't even feel like I get too immersed, but I just get like immersed, period. And then I'm thinking through what's happening, and I'm like, God, violence is terrible. And we're talking about violence with like usually like bladed weapons. Arrows and propulsed weapons create distance and historically made it psychologically easier for people to harm each other, right? And then you have guns. And I think it's a very interesting topic that doesn't get talked about a lot. And games try and approach it from an interesting angle of like, I mean, D&D had alignment for this exact reason. It was a metaphysical, they're actually evil. Actually evil. It's okay to attack them, harm them, kill them, remove them from the face of the earth because they're actually evil. That was a vehicle to allow people to wrestle with the inherent violence. And other games do this by making it, so it's monsters, not people. But then a lot of games in more modern recent times have started to say, well, these monsters have culture too, and maybe they're not monsters. And you have a lot more games. Pathfinder does this a lot. At first it was like half orcs were like the extent to which you would grant this sort of humanity, but now orcs and now frost giants and now all these things that are playable. And as soon as something becomes playable, you're taking it off of the monster board in a way, and you're putting it in the person board, what it is to be a person. Yeah, it's very interesting. And games that allow for nonviolent resolution, I'm noticing more and more in the space. And I wonder if that's a reaction to people wanting that, or I don't know where that comes from, but like violence is fucking terrible. Like I don't know if many players are sitting there thinking through that. It's awful. And it's not like I've been in any combat or like trained fighter or no military, nothing on my part. But I just think about like the horror of it. Like Jesus, like you're physically harming another being. And I don't know. That's going to be a hell of a stream when I do it. So maybe that'll be Wednesday. I don't know. Hey, Alejandra, welcome in. Can't believe you didn't catch this one. Well, you can't catch them all, can you? Good luck with the might rules. We've got some ways to handle it. We'll be all right. It's interesting to see who the permitted mindless monster is in different time periods. Yeah. Well, and that's just like, I don't remember when I was having, I think I did this on a London Hour call. I was talking about sci-fi art. As I was trying to identify what sci-fi art elements I liked for the aesthetic of this channel. And really it comes down to, broadly speaking, you can kind of take the decade that a certain style was conceived in, and that informs like what that decade thought the future would look like is its own slice of sci-fi aesthetic. So ray punk is like the 50s and the 60s, with like the what's the guy's name? Flash Gordon type stuff. I don't know. And you can kind of just see that aesthetic, like the Jetsons, like everything's a dome or a bubble or like that kind of aesthetic. And that becomes its own sci-fi aesthetic. And then you get into, I was reading an article about this, you get into like the 70s and what they thought the future would look like in the 70s and maybe partly the 80s. And it was this like brutalism is as an architectural style where everything was very stark and like concrete and like, I don't know, sterile maybe. And then you get into like the 90s and the 2000s, and you started to see more of the cyberpunk and the dystopian. And then for a little while there was like utopian sci-fi, and then now presently, I guess, sort of the aesthetic that's leading the charge is, again, like a post-apocalyptic dystopian post-utopia, because the culture is wrestling with different things, and that informs what the sci-fi aesthetic looks like in our visual zeitgeist, and it's mind-blowing. And so in that same way, yeah, it's like, who is the permitted mindless monster? Who is okay to be violent against? Who is okay to kill? Which is a horrifying thing to even say. And so you try to get around that by creating these monsters. But then aren't we as people creating monsters out of tropes that we're engaging with in daily life anyway? And isn't it just like one step abstracted from what we think the horrors and the monsters are of our modern era? It's wild. It's wild stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. A good question is, why do we like to do violence in games? Yeah, and that's a question that we'll have to ask when we do that stream. Sometimes it's cathartic, but maybe there are other reasons. Yes, and maybe there are things that I mean, violence is... God, I'm not a violence expert. I'm not a criminologist. I'm not any of these things. But, like, violence is sometimes, like, the last resort. It's the last answer to the people that aren't being heard. So now we're talking about sociological pressures, and we're talking about oppression, and how long do you have to be in a marginalized group and have your shit kicked in before you finally are like, this... I've heard it said before, like, sometimes violence is the only language that certain people will listen to, which is awful. It's fucking awful. But, like, you know, what do you do? There, I just turned on my fill light for the last 3 minutes of stream. D Priest, you read that science fiction is a time capsule to understand the worries and aspirations of the past. Yeah, I think that's a really cool way to put it. I definitely like the retrofuturism, the cassette futurism, that stuff, like that Astor Prisma does, and all that. But then when I try and look up that aesthetic, I'm like, this isn't it, though. Like, I have this really weird, peculiar taste of specifically what I want to see. You hope you can make the stream, because it's a topic I love thinking about with people. So glad you're doing well. I mean, I'm talking about doing it. It's going to be a big one. And I might do it Wednesday. I might not. So I don't know. I'm not going to do it on Saturday, because Saturday is for Astor Prisma. So if it's not Wednesday, it might be this next Sunday stream. Might be longer. I don't know. I have so many things I want to cover. It's insane. So many games I still need to get to. I really want to do a deep look at Infinite Revolution Overdrive. I haven't done any content on Girl by Moonlight yet. It just features in every frickin' stream I do because it's the best. The Last Caravan I want to give some time in the sun. Lots to do. I got Ted Bushman, the guy that wrote Last Caravan, started following me on Blue Sky as well, so that's awesome. I told him, I was like, hey, if I put your game up, I'll tag you, let you know. So, yeah, the London Station out there doing London Station things. Well, it's been fun. It's been real. It's been real fun. And appreciate you guys for being here. I really got to figure out this music situation, too. I just need to ask somebody for help, basically. Somebody help me. Help me know what I can do and not get sued or copyright struck. But with that said, I wonder if our friends are still streaming. So Cheeky, our friend, the one with the needle felt store, they are streaming with Zachary, and we raided into them the other day, and they are now fully Twitch affiliates, so they've got redeems and everything fun going on their channel, and people are doing the subscribing stuff, and it's cool. So, and I don't know if you guys saw too, they made a custom raid command for when I raid out to them, which is just the sweetest, like, most thoughtful thing. So when I raid in now, they can do the little command, and it pulls up my YouTube link and everything. They're such sweethearts. We love them. So let's go see Cheeky again, because it's their first day streaming as affiliate. If you'd be so kind to come over and just pop in and say hi, and then go on with your day, that's fine. We like to support our friends. If you're watching this later or now, do the liking and the subscribing and the commenting, because it all helps and it all adds up, and we're trying to go somewhere and do something meaningful in life. Love you guys. Thanks for spending time with me, as you do, and we will see you again on London Station. Take care.